Welcome back to another episode of the Obvious Choice Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Miller. I run a real estate team here in Blaine that I cleverly named the Tyler Miller team. Just spent so many hours on that one. I started this podcast because I just feel like I know a lot of amazing people in my life that, that I would turn to for certain things or that I, identify as an obvious choice in my world, and wanted to share those people with all of you. So today I am joined by the one and only Eric Stormoen. And so Eric and I have known each other for, 5-6 years, somewhere in there.
Well, we met when our kids were in daycare together.
Yeah,
so
stepping stones.
Yep, and Cash was 10.
Yep.
So that has to be at least 6 years.
Something like that.
Right?
And
I don't remember the day. There was no sun backlit Tyler or anything like that.
I know.
We didn't
like
and I have a
take
good memory too,
together. So
you must have been really nondescript.
Yeah. But Eric also lives in the community, has an amazing family, always really active within the youth sports community. Eric is one that shares a lot of just great things, kind of funny things on social media. We have a really similar personality, so I think we've been drawn together that way. I feel like we see the world very similarly, very much the same.
Okay.
That's a much easier way to say it.
That's interesting.
Who knows? Maybe we'll find out. That's not the case during this podcast.
We've got some stuff in common, no doubt about it.
I think, I don't know. I think you guys will see after this or during this podcast that he's a really interesting guy with a lot of cool knowledge, lots of cool life experiences. And I just thought it'd be good for him to come on here. Mainly, let's talk about some of the youth sports stuff. He battled COVID, which I found fascinating. Obviously, Rocky, baby.
Yeah,
it was crazy because it was pretty early on in COVID, if I remember right.
It was a year into it,
but it still was kind of I hadn't personally seen somebody that I knew battle it like you had.
Yeah, I think I brought it home for a lot of people who hadn't had an up close encounter with it.
Right. So and you guys, your family was really good about sharing what was happening, and so it was, it was just really interesting. And anyway, so I thought we could talk about that a little bit.
For sure.
You have a lot of just cool things that you've done in your life already, and also have some new and fun things happening with a magazine in Blaine.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to talk about the magazine. I'm super honored that you would have me on because, well, first of all, I like the podcast. I like what you're doing. I think that's cool. And, you've titled it The Obvious Choice because you've got people in your life who are, something to you and maybe should be that to other people, and you want to share that. I do think there's a bit of an elephant in the room here because it's what am I the obvious choice for in your life? But something in you wanted to have me on.
Exactly.
So, I was thinking about this. I was like, do we address the elephant in the room and that I may not have this this really concrete title, or should we just let it play out, and then maybe by the end of it, people are like, oh, that's why he wanted to have that dude on. And maybe it doesn't need to be defined. Maybe I'm the first person to break podcast protocol here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do think that there's definitely something to be said about that. That I think you are not specifically about one thing.
No, I'm definitely not.
Which makes you interesting and fun and relatable because, I think we try to, on this podcast, be like, hey, this person's really good at this one thing, but everybody's got their things. You're just somebody that is really, you're not doing something for a motive. You're not doing something for
better
business.
or worse. For better or worse, you're right.
You're just being who you are, and it's very unique, and I love it.
Well, I appreciate you recognizing that because I do think as I've gotten older, I've realized that probably is, what my forte is going to be. And just for the boys and girls at home listening, that's not necessarily a great way to make a living, by the way. And I've learned that the hard way. Yeah. And I've given up a lot of, probably in hindsight, great opportunities to make a lot of money because I've always sought out maybe the adventure or the story or the joke.
Yep.
I've done some things for a joke that probably cost me a lot of money even. But it comes down to your value system. And I have sort of patched together what I think is an interesting life. And if somebody like you says, I want to have you on this podcast, even though I don't know why the hell I want you on this podcast, maybe it's like,
right?
yeah, oozing out of me a little bit. So,
it is, for sure.
And there are some things you can learn from kind of living this way, good and bad. Like I am an example of how not to do things in a lot of ways. I've had great opportunities. I mean, people, and this is something really unlikable about me, but people work really hard to have one crack, one opportunity, right? Like the great Marshall Mathers said. And
seize every moment.
Yep. And some people don't ever get that, and I've had so many.
Yeah.
And some of them were just given to me sort of because I, grew up semi-privileged. Some of them I sort of made for myself without realizing. But I was also really willing to dismiss a lot of those.
Yeah.
And we can get into that, but it's job stuff, relationship stuff like that. But I've always kind of taken notes and learned from it, and I like to share what doesn't work. I think you learn a ton when things don't work. You learn when things work too.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's a blueprint. But I think there's an interesting component to that.
Right.
People generally leave going, it's like, dude's story.
I know.
How does he have a good-looking wife? How's he paying his bills? Like, did he really give Dr. Dre a hip hop hug? How did that come to be? That's all true.
We don't want to bury the lead.
No, I don't want to bury the lead.
When you sent me that, I was like, all right.
Yeah, well, that was a teaser. And that did happen. I gave Dr. Dre a hip hop hug. He gave me one back, just so you know. It wasn't a one-way street, because that would be, I think there's a lot of dudes who'd probably try to do that to Dr. Dre.
Totally. And when you say hip hop hug,
it's a bro hug.
Like the bro hug, right?
We used to call it a hip hop hug. I don't know. I mean, hip hop culture was when I'm older than you. I'm 46 years old.
Yeah.
So hip hop culture came about when I was really strong, like 6th or 7th grade, right? DMC, Beastie Boys, LL, all that stuff. And it was like, it was colorless. It was like, it had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with, economics. It was just sweet.
Yeah.
We all wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So, we called it a hip hop hug.
Yeah.
That's what it was called. And I think it's evolved. And
it's more of the bro hug now.
I think it's a bro hug. I think that's fine to call it that. But
me and Brady, my team member, reenacted it about 10 minutes ago, because I told him, like, yeah, he hip hop hugged Dr. Dre. And he's like, what's a hip hop hug? I'm like, what do you think it is? And we both did the exact same motion. I'm like, that's got to be what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, so here's the story. Should we just get into that story?
Yeah, like get into the story.
It doesn't have to be chronological.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be chronological. I'm not a big fan of rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no rules here. We're good.
Yeah. That's why you have an unobvious choice on the Obvious Choice podcast.
You're obviously unobvious. I love it.
So I'm working the door at a place called Katana on Sunset Boulevard. I'm 29, 30 years old. Okay. Somebody like you at 30 was already figuring stuff out. I was single. I was working the door. I'd been playing poker for a living. Did some real highs and real lows in poker, but I was working the door a couple nights a week at this place called Katana. It was like a Japanese sushi kind of restaurant, but it was high end, and it was also like a club at night.
Where was this?
Right on Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood,
in
California.
Hollywood.
Yep, the Sunset Boulevard.
Did you grow up out there?
No, I'm from the West Metro.
Okay, you just were out in Hollywood for a phase of your life?
Yeah, I went out there to go to film school.
Right.
So I did undergrad, and I went to Madison.
Yep.
Graduated with a political science degree, and then went out east, and we can get into all that if you want to go down that road. But I ended up in LA. I went to film school, decided I wanted to be Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
I'd broken up with my girlfriend of 7 years, which really I consider to be my first marriage.
Yeah.
Learned a lot, cut my teeth on, what commitment is and all that, and it just fell apart. And I went out there to go to film school, and I very quickly learned that everybody teaching film school was this disgruntled industry. That's what they call it out there, the industry. Are you in the industry?
Yeah.
Everybody's in the industry. They're disgruntled. Couldn't quite cut it.
Yeah.
Didn't make any money, don't start teaching, which, I know there's a lot of people who teach who maybe would rather be doing, but it was just dialed up in a weird way out there. And I was older than everybody too, by the way. Like, I was 27, 28 when I enrolled. It was just a 1-year program.
Yeah.
And I already had that, what's the word? Kind of pessimism about everything. Yeah. I was looking at it from a slightly young adult perspective.
You weren't winning in life anymore?
I just was I don't know, I wasn't naive. I think part of what they capitalize on when you get to college at 18 is you're still naive.
You're invincible.
You have a reverence for teachers and professors, and I'll be honest, I never had a lot of reverence for authority. My dad instilled that in me. not a great quality to have. But by the time I was 28 or so,
Bring the mic down a little bit. I want people that are watching to be able to see. There he is. Look at that guy. Sorry for those of you tuning in on Spotify or something. He had his mic kind of over his mouth. I want people to be able to see.
There you go.
There he is, the silver fox.
Look at that beard. Yeah.
Damn.
Where was I?
Yeah, that's a little. Yeah.
Where was I?
You were talking about being in Sunset or on Sunset. You had just applied for.
Yeah, I lost reverence. So I was like this. I was in film school, and so I dropped out. I went for a year and didn't make it.
Yeah.
I didn't make it. I mean, can you swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
I was like, fuck this. Okay. I was just like, Didn't like anything about it. Somewhat the Tarantino thing. I started looking around and just going, I'm not really like these people.
Yeah.
I thought that I'd find someone who was kind of like me, which I don't really like being around people like me, but I didn't see anything I recognized.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I got really kind of detached from it all and ended up dropping out and met a couple of good friends and started partying pretty hard and getting into the social scene and kind of trying to do stuff on the side. I just figured if I was going to be a writer, I should just start writing. And anyway,
So is that why you initially went to film school? Is you were going to be a writer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to be Quentin Tarantino, make films eventually.
Yeah.
Charlie Kaufman was a writer who did some really interesting films like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation. If you've seen those movies, you know they're a little bit psychologically off. I like that. The idea that I could maybe fuck with people through, writing. I mean, I like to be fucked with when I watch a movie. I don't. If I can predict it, I have no respect for you.
Right.
It's like I'm smarter than you.
Yeah. So did you like Shutter Island?
I never saw that.
Oh shit. Go watch that. You'll
When is
love
that?
that.
When is that from?
It's like maybe 7-8 years ago. Leonardo DiCaprio. It's really good.
Okay. Why haven't I seen that?
That one fucks with you, like in a good way.
Well, I will say this. When I left, I kind of got out of... I mean, I kind of... Same thing happened after I left ESPN. I was like, I couldn't watch SportsCenter for a while. I think it's like people who work at McDonald's.
Right.
They just don't eat that until like... They got to go 7 years until your cells regenerate, and then you're like, what are... A Big Mac sounds good.
Big Mac sounds great.
Yeah. So I think maybe I was just like, and I've kind of gotten out on movies in general as I've gotten older a little bit. But I'm taking the twisty scenic route here. But I was just doing my thing, and I ended up, playing poker for a living and dating and just enjoying the nightlife and all that stuff out there. And I took a job as a door guy at this place, Katana. This place, Katana, was like a kind of a cool place. It was kind of trendy. I had to wear a suit and I had a walkie-talkie. And I didn't like telling people, like, I just couldn't. I'm not a door guy. I wanted everyone to know I'm not really a door guy.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm the door guy. I'm not really a door guy. Yeah. No, like I'm kind of a writer. I'm cool too, like you. Now you come on in.
Yeah. I'm one of you.
But I make a few $100s a night, right? And there was there was one end that was the valet. Down the sidewalk was the concrete steps outside that kind of turned and went up to this huge outdoor concrete patio, concrete railings. It was an old building. The very top of it, Adam Sandler had his offices, so he would come with his brother. They would come in, and I would let them in because I knew it was odd. They wouldn't even go into the club. They were just going in. It was one of those buildings. It was just they had retrofit this sweet restaurant into this old building that had like offices upstairs, like nothing you see around here.
Yeah.
Just old. It was old Sunset Boulevard building.
Yeah.
And on this particular night, Lakers were in the playoffs. And, it was whatever time, they must have finished their game and down at Staples. And it was back in the Kobe days and when the Lakers had that run.
Yeah.
Late 2000s. So, I think they won their 3 or whatever in a row. It was earlier. Shaq might have been gone. Must have been gone by now, but Kobe was still there. They were in the playoffs. It was when, what's his name? The big dude. The tall dude.
Gasol?
Yeah, Gasol. With Gasol and his little buddy, that little Slavic friend of his, Vucevic or whatever, they hung together all the time. They would come to Katana. And on this night, the stretch limo pulls up, Stretch limo, Hummer limo. And out pops a crew of dudes or whatever, and one of them's in a Laker jersey, and they start making their way toward the door, and all of a sudden I hear my walkie-talkie crackle a little bit. Remember, no jerseys. I'm like, okay, no problem. That's just a dress code or whatever. We're trying to be a fly place. Yeah. Crew starts getting closer, and I'm like, oh, shit. That's Dr. Dre.
The guy wearing the jersey?
No. Right in front of the line. He was, of course, in front of the line, and then his bunch of his buddies or whatever. And it's ripped Dre. Like, remember, there was like chubby Dre, but then Dre got ripped.
Yep.
He'd always wear this like tight blue, kind of like navy blue shirt that just was like he just was wearing skin.
Yeah.
And it was ripped Dre wearing that blue shirt. And I was like, I told you I've only been starstruck once in my life.
Yeah.
That wasn't it.
I wasn't.
I wasn't starstruck, but I was like, damn, okay. This is him. This is that dude. This is that dude. He's this dude who found Eminem.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he's at.
Yeah. And revolutionized a lot of what you love with the hip hop.
Dude, just whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like kind of an icon and whatever. In the arts world, if you ever wanted to be a writer or a musician or even a photographer or anything, like, that dude's the real deal. He's an artist, okay? Mm-hmm. But his buddy's got a Laker jersey on. We can't allow jerseys in. So now I got to make this decision. Am I a bouncer guy, which I'm not, and I want to make sure everyone knows. And so I walkie-talkie. I'm like, yeah, I know, or whatever. So he's about to roll by me. I put my hand on his, chest. Stop right there, Dre. That's what I'm basically saying. He's like, what's up, man? I'm like, we can't allow jerseys in. He's like, for real? I was like, yeah. He's like, we just came from the Lakers. I go, I know, we don't allow Laker jerseys in there. It's just like a thing. I was like, can you have him just peel it off?
Yeah.
And when he gets in there, put it fucking back on.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
My boss is watching me down there. He looked down by the garage where we valet all the sweet cars, and he's looking at me, like a boss.
Yep.
Can we keep Eric? Do we got to fire Eric? What's his deal down there? Is he handling this? And I was like, he's like, whatever his buddy's name was, Ty, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Kick your jersey off. And he's like, for real? He's like, yeah, kick it off. They don't allow jerseys in here. Guy peels his jersey off. I go, thanks, man. He goes, I leaned into it.
Yeah.
Hip hop
hug, man.
Went up to the restaurant, and I was like, okay, mental diary entry.
Yep. That's a good night.
I just hip hop hugged
the king
of hip hop.
That's
all
pretty
right.
Amazing.
Yeah, I could probably move home now.
Yeah.
I think I moved home shortly after.
I mean, yeah.
I never made it.
Get better than that, really. I mean, you know what I mean?
I mean, it's a great story.
Yeah,
that's what
fantastic.
it is. At parties, I bring it up and stuff like that. So
I love it.
I mean, and if you like stories, it's a great icebreaker. And I may not ever have, a house on a lake, but I've got that story to tell my kids, and they can tell their kids, and they're all true.
Heck yeah.
Because people start to look at me sideways, like, "Are you embellishing?" No, I do not embellish those stories. That's what happened.
Yeah. Well, that's
why I do it, so I can tell the real stories. That's why we have adventures.
That's one of many layers to Eric Stormoen.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, maybe he rubs something off on me. I think when you hip hop hug a legend, or you meet somebody and you pull something from them in that moment, and maybe you get a little confidence.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of like this idea that little in between things in life are maybe more important than the events circled on your calendar. And as we get into the COVID story, it's one of the things that really got fortified in my mind. It's the mortar in between the bricks. Let's call it that, right? You've probably seen quotes about stuff like that. It's the spaces in between.
Yeah.
Right, Dave Matthews. The spaces in
great song.
The spaces between are the ones that end up being the big, like, sort of influences on direction and things you end up doing, and they're not planned. You might not even know them at the time.
Right.
You don't know. You don't know if you're going to walk out this door right here and you're going to run into somebody who says something to you or asks you a question that reorients you into a direction or makes you think about something that changes the course of everything you do, and you might not know it at the time. You probably won't know it at the time.
Yep.
But those moments aren't. That's why New Year's Eve never lives up to the hype, man.
Yeah.
It never does. It never does.
No, it never does.
Halloween parties never live up to the hype. They're fun, but they're hyped.
Yep.
It's an anticipation thing. That's where all that comes from. The reality is just a random hip hop hug makes you think about something. Go, okay, the world's smaller than I thought.
Yeah.
Smaller than I thought. It was a normal dude. Man, he was actually kind of cool to some clown like me at a door. I could be cool. I could be cool to people.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. Maybe I'm inspired to write something,
Yeah.
I did write a few hip hop tunes in my day.
Do you have them recorded?
I never did record them because they were written kind of before it was easy to do that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like,
Well, shit, you could just come on in here. We could lay down some beats,
why
baby.
not? Yeah. I mean, I don't have a real good flow, but I could write rhymes.
Yeah.
I could write rhymes. I wrote a rap about Google one time.
About Google?
But this is, I mean, it's outdated now.
Or Goggle?
But like, yeah, for sure.
Inside joke.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too far, let's go back a minute. I want people, like, tell a little bit about your family.
Yeah.
You mentioned you have a wife, obviously, and you have a couple kids.
What's something we have in common? We both have sexy wives. I mean, you
Yeah.
can learn a lot about a dude by his wife, for
Yeah,
sure.
we outkicked our coverage for sure. So great
That's the
job
way to do
there,
it.
buddy.
Why else would you get
I
married?
mean, yeah, exactly. Yep. So your wife Sarah, Shorty, as you call her.
Well, she's shorter
What's
than me.
what is the
It's
thing
hip-hop
behind it?
culture. That's hip-hop culture.
I always say Shorty does the fair every year.
Yeah, shorty. She's my shorty. She's my shorty. She's shorter than me. People always think she's going to be short when they...
Do you say shoddy? Or do you
I mean, it
say
depends. Depends if I've had a couple. Shoddy, where you at, Shoddy?
Where you at, Shoddy?
Shoddy, come down here, Shoddy.
Because, I mean,
Whatever.
that's true hip-hop, right?
She's
That's
tired of me, man.
shoddy.
She doesn't show up when I call her. She's tired of me. I'm her second husband.
Yeah. Yeah,
been
because
down
so
this
she
road.
had one kid, is it 10?
Yeah, Talon.
Talon
Yep,
is-
Eagle Talon, yeah.
Yep. With a previous husband. And then you and her had Cash and
Sailor, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so I came back shortly after that hip-hop story. I just was like, one day I woke up, I looked around, I was 31, and I saw it writing on the wall. I wasn't really trying to do anything. I didn't want to. I had decided at some point that, like, I don't know, it's not really me. I wrote a screenplay called Stan the Man. Kind of didn't, I mean, I wrote a couple drafts, but didn't really try to sell it. And I was just partying too much, right? And I looked around, and we had some neighbors that were like in their early 40s, and they were kind of oblivious to their age. Because out in LA, man, it's one long summer day. And when you come from the Midwest, it's hard to measure time. You lose track of time. And I don't like losing track of stuff. Like I like kind of being hyper aware of everything. And I was losing track. I could tell, like, okay, that's probably where I'm headed. Like I had some cool ideas, but I had a roommate. One of my roommates was a screenwriter, and that's what he was doing. Like he was doing it every day. He's still making films. Yeah, Brian. He's still making films, and I was like, nah, man, I'm not dedicated like that.
Yeah,
I'm just like I'm off. I'm doing other. I mean, my head's other places. So I came back. It was just time to come back.
Yeah.
One day I woke up. I left my flat screen. I left my bed, and I packed my Dodge Charger with rims.
nice. Were they spinners?
They didn't spin. They shined.
They're pretty sick though.
Yeah, they were all right. Let me. That's where my head was at. Think about that. And whatever I could fit in there, and I just drove back.
Yeah.
My buddy was having his wedding reception. He had gotten married in Italy. I didn't have enough money to go to the wedding, but he was having like a second reception here at home, and he was like my best friend, my college roommate. And I was like, I got to be back for this. And so I moved home.
Yeah.
Left a note for my roommates, and just was like, here's rent.
Yep.
Here's rent through the rest of whatever I owe, and I'm out of here. And I came back, and I met Sarah shortly thereafter.
How did you guys meet?
Mutual friend, buddy's sister. They were out, and I was staying with my buddy Jim, and we were out. We were going out. Came back. I was living with him. We were partying. He was an attorney. He was single, living in North Loop.
Yeah.
So we just went out, and I was obnoxious. I got drunk. She hated me. She hated me that first night.
It's usually how it starts.
Yep. We went out with him again the second night. I think I was funnier. It was probably funnier.
Yeah.
Because I was a little hungover.
Turn down the charm.
Yeah, for sure. And she was cool. Like she thought she was hot stuff, and I was like, you're a 6. And she was like,
you were negging her?
well, she thought she was really hot.
Have you heard of negging? I never negged, but apparently
No.
it's a strategy where you like
degrade?
cut them down to make them want you
I was just
more.
honest.
I don't know if that works, but
I was just honest.
yeah.
I was just honest.
Yeah.
And I didn't say it to be a dick. I think I don't know how the conversation started, but I was just like, you're probably like a 6 to me.
Yeah.
But I was like, you have to understand the context. I just came from LA.
True.
Okay? The most beautiful girl in every town moves out there to be a model, to be an actress. I mean, a lot of them are whacked out.
Yeah.
And that's gross. That devalues, you can't have a relationship with them, but they're beautiful. They're stunning to look at.
Right.
And so like, I'm like, you're very pretty, but like you're like a 6 or whatever. And she just couldn't believe that some dude wasn't going bananas over her. And so, I don't know, you dated some pretty good looking women in your day. I mean, if you don't fall over around them, they're interested as to why. And
right.
That jump starts.
Yeah. Most people are intimidated by beauty and,
Yeah.
So like I say this all the time, and I've been in a relationship now for, gosh, 2010 was when we got married. So what
You guys are sweethearts from way back, right?
13 years married, and we were together for 8 years before that. So what is that? 21 years we've been together.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
You're a young dude.
Right. So over half my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had a shot at this, but in my brain, I just know, like, no one's talking to the pretty girl at the bar. They're always the most
You figured that
person.
out on your own?
Yes.
You notice that?
Yeah, 100%. So it's just like,
Or if they do, it's groveling. It's
like,
goofy.
can I buy you a drink?
It's goofy.
Yeah.
It's goofy. It's like, my buddy dared me, or
Right.
or like, you can't compose yourself.
Some one-liner or something. You can't just go chill, right? Because guys are wired one way. So I think if I wasn't in a relationship, I'd do pretty well. Because, not that I want to get out of a relationship, I'm just saying, I know the game because most people aren't going to go talk to these women. And I get it. It's intimidating.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
when you don't have any self-belief or worth, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think, or maybe you just don't have the experience.
yeah.
Like, to me, it was just like, my mom was really pretty. I kind of knew really pretty women were like, had a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
They're flawed.
Yeah.
Like, I'd seen, whatever. My mom's whole side of her family, they're kind of like these gypsy, beautiful women. I grew up, they basically raised me.
Yeah.
So I was always like, okay, yeah, I know you're pretty, but like, you're flawed.
Yeah.
You're flawed. We're all flawed.
We all have flaws.
You're not. I'm not intimidated.
Whether you're pretty or you look like us, we got flaws.
100%. 100%. So Sarah didn't intimidate me, and I think that was
refreshing.
that was for her. She was like, she wanted to know more.
Yeah.
It was very intriguing.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't think she ever. I still don't think she likes me.
She's still like playing the game.
I don't think she likes me. I think she's intrigued by me.
Yeah.
I bring great value.
Yeah.
She had a son.
Yep.
She saw a potential dad. I was always good. I was ready to kind of settle down. I had sold some oats, so I was very interested in like interacting with her son, and he was cool. And I had nephews and nieces already, and so like it was pretty natural. I can remember being a kid.
Yeah.
It's not hard for me to remember being young.
Yeah.
Right. I documented all that stuff while I lived it.
Yeah.
I was always mapping everything, so I can relate to kids, and so we had fun, and that was different too. I think dudes were like interested in her, but not this side baggage thing. And I was always down with, let's go, let's all hang, let's play. You didn't have any superheroes, you didn't have any sports stuff. I was like, what's going on around here?
Yeah.
Got him that stuff. And so,
well, and that's something that I always think about, but even you posted a picture, I think yesterday or the day before, of Sailor playing cash in basketball in your basement.
that was last night.
And you have like a pretty sweet looking like basketball court almost made out of your living room flooring or family room flooring in the basement. And that's like, you are really good about, like, your kids will never be like, oh yeah, my dad never played with me, or any of that. Like, they just have, I think any kid that you plump down in your family, if they're into sports for sure, but like either way, I think you guys just are always super like in touch with making sure they're having like the best opportunities and the best exposure to things.
Yeah,
and it's really cool that you like do that. Like me, my mind is like, I'm not making my fucking basement
really
basketball court.
That surprises me.
It needs to look beautiful.
Really?
That's what I think.
Do you really? That surprises me.
Yeah, a little bit, because that's just the way I was raised. Like things are nice, and like, yeah, we can have some fun things too, but the house is nice. So like,
I think that's probably pretty normal. I mean, it seems like you got a good balance.
But
you have a nice house.
But yours is really, it's just cool. Like it's a different type of balance. Yours is solely focused on, or not solely, it's focused on making sure that the kids have all these fun opportunities, which is awesome. Like, as a parent, you're just like, man, I'd love to have that for my kids too.
Interesting.
So
interesting.
I love that.
I feel that way when I watch Bluey. Do you ever watch Bluey? Oh, your kids are too old now. It's a cartoon. It's like an Australian cartoon that's now become an American cartoon, but the parents are super involved.
Yeah.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, God, those cartoon parents are so involved with their kids. I do. I mean, it comes kind of naturally to me, I think, because I think I am a kid. I mean, I am a kid, so creating that kind of environment is just as much for me as for them. So I don't want to get this like credit like I'm so giving.
Well,
right? But I'm creating an environment I want to be in.
Yeah.
My wife would probably side with you a little bit more on that because we have a hoop up in our living room. I mean, our house is a bit of a playground.
But it still looks nice, I guess. I didn't mean it doesn't look nice. Like it looked.
Oh, I'm glad.
It looked great. I was like,
An
that's
adult
a
could
great
have a good
idea.
time there too.
Yeah, seriously, it's a fun because I think off in the background there was like. Was there like a arcade?
Yeah,
right. Like
that's retro arcades.
it's
Check
just
them out
cool,
on Facebook. That
cool
dude
stuff
does
like
those.
that.
There's 5,000 games on that machine.
So one of my past clients had one of those. Super cool. And actually one of my business partners has one too. And I would love to get one of those.
You should.
So maybe one day when I'm as cool as you, we'll have something like that. But like
You don't believe that. You know you're cooler. I know.
I don't know, man. Like I'm saying, you even have like the basketball court out I think in your backyard. I don't know. You just do a really good job.
Yeah, I've done. I mean, I've built it with my hands, and we don't have it. I mean, we're not a super wealthy family or anything like that. I mean, we both work hard and whatever. And
what does Sarah do again?
She works downtown for a financial investment firm.
Okay.
She's the basically the admin for a big wig.
Okay.
Coordinator of all those activities and stuff like that. She's done that for years and years and years. Started at U.S. Bank and kind of worked her way around.
Okay.
And I'm a contractor. I own a small contracting firm, basically, or what do you want to call it, and do mostly barn restoration work.
Yeah, I've seen some of those crazy videos and pictures.
It's art to me a little bit, but we also regular contracting stuff. I mean, the barn stuff is big ticket items. I cut my teeth on that. My buddy Ryan Miller
Sweet last
was looking for a guy who had no experience. I mean, I was a writer, wannabe writer.
Right.
I had a bunch of experience in media and marketing stuff. Sarah got pregnant with Cash, and my friend Katie, her brother-in-law, needed a guy, and I was actually bartending at the time because I'd co-founded this company called Yokel Sports, and the idea was basically people would capture local high school or youth sports on their devices, and we would curate all the content. Okay, well, it was 2010, and this guy Chris and he was from New York, New Jersey. We started this company here in Minneapolis with the idea that we'd be in these different cities, and it was a great idea. I mean, it was taking everything I had done in sports. I worked for ESPN for a while. I worked in radio, and I'd done some stuff, and he had done some stuff. Worked for an agency out in LA, and he was kind of content guy. Liked the idea of producing movies and TV, and we kind of put our heads together, and we were creating this. It's called Yokel Sports, and it was going to be ultimately this curation of all this local stuff that people were capturing now. At the time, phones weren't really doing it like they are now.
Yeah.
And Instagram didn't even have video on its platform.
Yeah.
At all.
Yep.
And so what we did is we hired these we called them Yokel Army members. They were just young college kids, and we gave them flip cams. Flip cam was like a camera that had a big red button, had a pop out USB, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't even a cord. It just popped out, and you could charge it. And you could capture 60 minutes of video. We bought a bunch of those for $100 at Best Buy and sent them out to record high school games. They would come back, and we would dump this into a server, and I would edit highlights, and then we produced a show for KSTC on Sunday nights or whatever. And we were raising money. We had some seed money to start. We were trying to raise money. We had an office downtown, and Chris and I were kind of on different pages. He wanted to produce this TV show, which was costing about $12,000 a show with,
wow,
with a camera guy and a sound and editing equipment and editing people and all the staff and all the time and our wages and all this stuff. And basically it just, I wanted to go, cloud wasn't a thing yet, but I knew it was going to be like apps. It was going to be like, it wasn't going to be in a TV show. That was just so old fashioned. And we just kind of were splitting our interests and ultimately ran out of money.
Yeah.
Ran out of money.
Expensive, man.
Yeah.
$12,000 a show.
Yeah, and we were hiring really good cinematographers, and we were over our skis, which I knew we would be. I mean, that's just how most things are. I mean, you're doing a podcast. I mean, you're a little over your skis. You're figuring it out as you go, and that's how everything is. You got to do it that way, or you don't ever start.
Right.
But we just ultimately it just kind of flamed. We did some cool stuff. We had an unbingable question, which was Bing. It was supposed to be ironic because Google was always bigger, but Bing was out.
Yeah.
I wish we would have called it ungoogleable question because, I don't know, people might have found it.
Yeah.
Just by, whatever. It was just one of those things where I overthought it, but it was just questions that you couldn't find the answer to by searching, and we'd go out and produce like a 15-minute piece of content on YouTube. Put it on YouTube.
What's an example of an unbingable question?
Do cheerleaders matter?
Oh, okay. What does Google say about that?
I don't know at the time. This is 2010, 2011, right? I mean, it was kind of before Quora too. Like, those are more questions that are human answered, and so we're just supposed to be funny content. You can still find the unbingable question. Go look it up.
Look it up for sure.
One of them is, why is John Bryant on my big gulp? So my college roommate and my best friend from high school played for the Badgers and played on that Final Four team. When he was like 30, he would have been 33, 34 at the time. He got contacted by 7-Eleven to see if he would release his rights to be on a big gulp cup around March Madness.
Yeah.
And so they released all these cups. There's 4 former NCAA tournament stars that ended up on these cups.
Yeah.
So we went and bought a bunch of them, and obviously I still have them because it's like, it's my best friend
really
on a
cool.
cup. But we did a segment on why was he on my cup, and hired this guy Scott Schneeweiss, who's hilarious. He was our MC, and he did these. So these things still exist, but ultimately this thing failed. Okay, that was where I was getting to, and so I needed money. Sarah was pregnant, and so I ended up bartending, which was hard for me a little bit because I felt like I was going backwards. I'd done that when I was young.
Right.
But
I bet you're really good at that, though, to be honest.
I mean, I probably could be, but anybody could be. It's like anything else. If you're not into it.
But I feel like you have the personality a little bit for it. I could see
I'd
you
outgrown
being
it.
over it, though. Yeah.
I'd outgrown it, man.
Yeah.
I was 35 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I think we all have a timeline in our head for stuff.
It's past the time.
In my head.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd left LA because I was ready to be a grown-up.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like I was. There's nothing against that profession.
No.
You can make a great living doing it. I just, in my head, had moved past it, and so I was going back. It was like retrograde motion or whatever. And so when my friend Katie was like, my brother-in-law needs a dude, I was like, well,
I'm a dude.
My dad was a psychologist. I'm a dude. Some people think, some don't. My dad was a psychologist, didn't teach me how to build anything.
Yeah.
We didn't hunt or fish.
Yeah.
We talked about reverse psychology growing up, or, we observed human behavior together.
Yeah,
at
people watched.
At Brookdale. So I was like, well, I can just promise from this, I'm a grown up, and I'll show up. Mm-hmm. And so I did, and he was restoring old barns, and paid the bills while Sarah was pregnant and Cash was born, and so I started to realize that I could barf up some of this art doing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So we've done some cool things. We've restored old buildings and turned them into venues. We've restored, family barns on property that they weren't using anymore. Now it's a destination, and turned them into livable spaces. And I learned everything you can learn about contracting and all these, the finer points. And I mean, there's something really beautiful and artistic about construction. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I was scratching that itch. Mm-hmm. And so I still do it. I still do it. The barn work is probably not as often as just the contracting stuff.
Yeah. So you help people with bathrooms, basements?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, anything, bathrooms, you get it deeper into it. Mostly it's like bigger ticket stuff.
What's the company name?
Ernie.
Ernie?
Mm-hmm.
Just Ernie.
Ernie Company. Yeah.
Ernie Company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if someone bings that, they'll find.
Yeah, Ernie. I don't have a website. It's all Instagram. But Ernie is not. I always say it's not a name. It's a mindset. Just being earnest and honest. That line of work is filled with so many shysters and so many Johnny come latelys, or pay me now, or pay me first, then I'll get to it when I get it. It's just that I try to bring this same sincerity to the conversation and then the work. And I work with Ryan still on projects. I have another friend, Kevin Kostchak, who's a partner in this magazine that I'm launching. Kostchak Construction. He's as good as anybody I've ever met at this. His attention to detail is exactly one of the first guys I've met who are kind of on the same level in terms of the earnestness that we want to bring to it.
Yeah.
And so
it's more of an art than a job.
Yeah, and there's money to be made doing that. and so that's how I paid the bills, for Cash and then Sailor and for what we do. But I build a lot of the stuff myself at the house because, A, I know how to do it. B, I like to put a little stamp on it. Yeah. My own little stamp. I can't stand cliches. I can't stand doing stuff that everybody else has done, and so I like to put a little one-off flair to it, and so it's been cool. It's been cool learning that stuff and being able to do that.
Well, and anytime I've seen any of your stuff, you do damn good work.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
so I don't want to forget to come back to, I mean, a sailor's incredibly talented, but Cash is, he might be professional someday. Dude is incredible at every sport he's ever played from what I can see. And I've seen him in person do it multiple times. So it's got to be super fun. And I know you're really passionate about the, youth sports, the coaching, all that stuff.
For sure.
So I want to come back to that, but I do really quick want to go down the COVID path because I'm just genuinely curious.
Well, let's not do anything quick. I mean, I'm sure you're on a timeline, but like, that's what I like about these podcasts is like I don't have to rush through anything.
Yeah. But like, okay, so let's set the scene, right? So this was a couple years ago now?
2021, December of 2021.
How old were you at this point?
I would have been 44.
44. Pretty healthy for the most part, like in your life, or
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think by almost any definition, I'd be a pretty healthy. I mean, just by virtue of working with my hands and we're going up and down ladders and scaffolding, and I've done little things to make sure I'm not in atrocious shape. Like we've talked about this before, but like 3-day fasts or 4-day fasts, things like that I've done that. I'm always kind of taking inventory of where I'm at. I mean, I could be in better shape, of course. Like, I bet you if you did my BMI or something, it would.
We all could. Yeah.
But I wasn't.
Healthy,
yeah,
not always sick. Right?
No, not sick at all, and also not somebody who takes stuff. Like I have my grandma in sort of like imprinted in me this like organic sense of the world, not just in a food sense or whatever, but like in a don't pump yourself full of pills, not Tylenol even.
Right.
Like, that stuff's got its place, but like. Be sort of, conscientious.
Yeah.
Be conscious of what you eat. Be aware. And so like, I was a dude who like, I'm like, I'm not propped up by a bunch of medicine or pills or anything like that. And when COVID hit, I became pretty quickly like one of those guys on Facebook, who, how do I say this in a way that's appropriate? I was just one of those guys who felt like I wanted to share my suspicions about it. Like, I just didn't buy into the narrative, okay? I just didn't buy into the narrative. And I was willing to be really vocal about what I thought was maybe some overzealous reporting or like some hype. Yeah. Some fear mongering.
Yep.
And a lot of people felt that way.
We're all feeling that.
But not a lot of people were sharing it because it
was super hot topic.
Yeah, but it was kind of what this is like, Trump came along in 2016 and everything got real intense online. Yeah. Up until that point, like you could kind of joke still about stuff, or you could voice your opinion and it didn't make you the enemy.
Right.
After Trump divided us. Divided us in a really intense way. And so not a lot of people were sharing their thoughts on COVID one way or another. It was just like you had to know that you were going to get pushback or maybe lose friends or start a conversation, or if you had a line of work where your reputation is accessible, let's say. You're a quasi public figure in this town, like it doesn't do you any good to share your thoughts on some of the stuff one way or another. No. It's a death sentence, maybe.
I've joked with my team. I'm like, we should all just get a burner account, like, because it gets heated during election times and all that stuff. And I'll see some of my team members. They'll share something, and I'm like, I'll message them and be like, you should probably just take that one down. And if you really want to share your opinion, you need to probably do it on a different account. Like,
yeah, and it's true. It's a fact. It's not. There was a time when it was kind of trivial or funny, and if somebody who liked to push the envelope a little bit, there are things that I would have posted 10 years ago or have posted that they don't fit in today's world at all.
Oh, yeah.
I hosted a radio show, dude, when I was 26 years old. If the copies of those radio shows existed, I mean, honestly, I would have friends that wouldn't. I was trying to be Howard Stern.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was cool.
Yep.
That's what I thought was going to be my ticket in that space.
Yep.
That stuff doesn't.
The world has changed very quickly.
Oh, it doesn't. There's
even from when I was growing up. Like, I mean, the stuff we used to say, and I mean, I look back at some of the posts I made early on social media. And luckily there was no like photos. It was just like, Tyler, what's on your mind? And I would say something stupid, and I was like, man,
it's hard to remember what that culture was like, or what the world was like, because it's changed so much, and it's so obvious now that this stuff is for everybody to access and ingest and then get back at you, and the consequences are so obvious. It was not that obvious when this stuff was new.
No.
Our brains didn't understand the reach that it would have or the shelf life it would have. And there was, even though you were sharing something on a public platform, it still kind of felt like it was just going to your friends. It really did. And it felt like, well, they know the whole picture of me, so the context is always intact.
Right.
The context is not intact when something goes beyond your circle of friends, beyond that wall.
Right.
And so you look back on that, and it seems ridiculous if you haven't deleted already. I mean, more power to anybody who's left it up there, warts and all. But I mean, the reality is nobody's going to give you that leash anymore either.
No.
They're going to judge you by today's standards. So people weren't sharing much about, I mean, I shouldn't say people. I mean, I had friends who were talking to me about it. I would get a ton of private messages, and let's just like be clear about what I was saying. I was basically saying, I was never saying COVID wasn't real, because I think people afterwards would came up to me and they would say, "It seems pretty real now, huh,
right.
Mister?
Right,
Mister GoFundMe."
Yeah, yeah.
I never thought it wasn't real. I was able to kind of tell that this felt like very obvious to me that there was something inorganic about this process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was very obvious to me that there was like a narrative. There was another agenda going on.
It was very political.
It was so political. And the origins to me were up for debate, but you couldn't say they were up for debate. You couldn't say, well, maybe this was cooked in a lab. It's like, no, that put you in a certain camp.
Right.
Who are you? And then that evolved into sort of the vaccine. It was like, where do you stand in the vaccine? You got to, if you stand here, you're good. If you stand here, you're a demon. And so I was just of the camp that, like, it felt like there was an agenda, and so I voiced all that.
Yep.
Well, lo and behold, Mr. Vocal got COVID.
Yep.
And
do you know where, when, how?
There's no way. There's no way to know that. I mean, I was not vaccinated.
Yep.
My wife was. My 17-year-old son, 14 at the time, was. And I was not, and that was a decision I made for, I'd be happy to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, he's sort of one of the key ingredients to baking any kind of decent cake. So I'd be happy to talk about that, but it's one of those things that people, it's not, I don't know, most people don't want to hear about it. They don't really care anymore. I mean, it's just one of those things, but I was not vaccinated. And, to me, it was like, if I get it, I get it. It's clearly something serious. But you look around and it's like, for the most part, people, even my friends who had it, it was like 10 days of discomfort.
Right.
2 weeks of kind of like gnarly cold-like symptoms.
Maybe. It wasn't even that bad.
And it varied. You'd see stories of people, I think at that point, Joe Rogan had it and used ivermectin, and it lasted 2 days. And so there was a lot of ambiguity about what it was going to do to you, why it was going to do what it did to you based on your body type, based on your blood type, your age, all this stuff. It was just, but then you still didn't know. Like, there was so much disinformation or misinformation that it was like, geez, I don't know. I almost just have to get it to find out. And on Christmas Eve 2021, I was supposed to go, and I was building out my sister's restaurant. My sister's got a bunch of cool restaurants in Stillwater. And we were building out this cool 90s organic fusion bar with a 90s nod. And we were toward the end of it. It's called the Wild Hare, if I can do a plug.
Yeah.
And we were toward the end of it, and I was going to go in that day and finish some stuff up, because obviously you'd be out for a couple days of Christmas. And I just had this like weird pain in my ribs, and I was like, man, I don't feel good. And I was like, I got to go in. And I got about halfway there, and I turned around and came home, and I was like, I feel like shit. It's like enough. And you get older, you feel like shit a lot. I mean, but you just grind through it, especially when you're in a labor-intensive type of job.
Totally.
I felt like too much shit to go into work. And came home, rested, got a burst of energy, but then back down. Tested, didn't have COVID. And my mom, who was still alive at the time, and my dad we decided to kind of, and Sarah's parents, who I'm really close with, decided we wouldn't have anybody over. And then I tested positive, and Sarah tested positive, and the kids tested positive, and Sarah was down and out, and with the cold-like symptoms. My kids never showed anything, and I was just kind of on the couch and feeling really shitty, and talking to my friends, and they were like, "Yeah, it's gonna last 2 weeks." And I was like, "Geez, this is brutal. Like, it's like the flu. It's like the flu, but it's like kind of hurts." Yeah. And that was like 25th, 26th.
When you say hurts, was it like your chest?
Yeah, my ribs. Oh, sorry, my ribs hurt. Like I was in physical pain. Like okay, I was like, "Fuck, this is like a real thing." I got really sick. I was laying on the couch and I was like, "Okay, damn," like. Whew.
Yeah, ribs hurt.
But yeah, my ribs hurt. I was sick, and it was all the worst symptoms my friends told me I was gonna have, and I was like, "Geez, I gotta manage this for 10 or 12 days." Wow, that's a marathon. Like, like it's an endurance battle right there. And Sarah was sick, and so we have we have young kids at the time. I mean, so they're 10 and 7 now. So you're talking 8 and 5 or whatever. And of course, Christmas is now ruined, which is, as a parent, there's always a little bit of guilt there. And I my parents, obviously I couldn't see them. We did a Zoom gift opening or whatever, and now it's 27th, 28th, and I'm getting worse. Like my wife's sort of stabilized. My kids aren't showing any symptoms, and like I'm getting worse. And on the 28th, my oxygen levels are low. My wife's in constant contact with her roommate from college about that, and there's some concern about my oxygen levels. They're doing the little finger thing, and they're in the low 90s, and they're in the 80s.
You were at home when they were testing this?
I was at home, and I'm not sleeping. I'm delirious, and we started like looking around for like some of the black market stuff, if you want to call it that.
Yep. The Joe Rogan stuff.
Yeah. I had gone, and the timeline's a little murky in my head. It's been a while since I've talked about this, and it's also such a blur in my head because of the state I was in, but also the circumstances. And I went to the emergency room, and at this point, I think this must have been like the 27th or something, because it was getting bad, and they wanted to make sure I didn't. My wife and her friend basically said, "Make sure he doesn't have pneumonia." Yeah. So I went in and waited in what was like the worst waiting room experience of my life. Like I could barely keep my head up. At one point, I think they put me in a wheelchair, and I was like holding back throw up. But they went in and they did X-rays, and they basically said, "You don't have pneumonia yet. XYZ things. You're very sick." They criticized me for not getting vaccinated, and I remember thinking, "Okay, yeah." I just remember thinking, I was too sick to like be mad, but I was like, "Oh crap!" And I kind of felt their frustration though. Like these waiting rooms were full. They didn't know what the reality was. They knew that they had powers that be were telling them. The powers that be were telling them if everyone was vaccinated, you would not be in the situation. And they're exhausted. They're working around the clock. And all their reward is for getting somebody better or out of there is another person just as sick. They're on a gerbil wheel of just,
no thanks and just sick people.
And there's also it's politically charged, and so I can only imagine that they were in like just an absolute fractured state of mind. And so I remember thinking, geez, that's a hell of a thing to say to somebody who's really sick. But I don't really have the energy to like battle it. And I normally have the energy to battle anybody on anything at any time. They sent me home and basically just said, rest and, I think, Advil or whatever. And I got progressively worse. And my mom, who had, she had some health problems her whole life and had a couple kidney transplants. When she was 8 years old, she had crawled into her mom's room and basically complained of kidney pain. And she had a kidney disease of some kind. They don't know what caused it. They never figured out exactly what caused it. Maybe strep, maybe some carbon monoxide poisoning. They never figured it out, but it became this ongoing health issue her whole life. And she ended up having 2 transplants. Those kidneys failed. She was on dialysis for 17 years, 18 years. Jeez. She was young, still, relatively speaking. I mean, my mom was pregnant with me when she was a teenager and had me when she was 20, so she would have only been 64 at this time, but she went to the doctor with some fluid on her lungs and died at dialysis without them knowing, just her eyes closed. And if you know anything about dialysis, people on kidney dialysis, she was waiting for a kidney, which she was never going to get. We didn't really acknowledge that, but 18 years on dialysis, she just wasn't a good candidate anymore. And
So at the actual facility?
She died at the dialysis facility, and she had surgery in October, basically to fortify her spine, because one of the things dialysis, being on dialysis does, and the lack of nutrients and all the other stuff, is you have like bone density degradation or whatever. And so she was starting to lose bone density in her spine, and they had to like fortify it. And so she was in a halo, and the last couple months of her life were brutal, and she was a very proud woman. And so she wouldn't even see anybody during this whole process, but she was just kind of starting to turn the corner, because she, maybe was going to get that halo off in January. And she got sick, some fluid in her lungs. She didn't want to go to the doctor. She'd been in and out of hospital. Her and my dad were very much like, if we can just tough this out and not go spend the night in the hospital, let's do it. And so they probably should have gone in. She went to dialysis. She died. Well, I got that news when I was like really sick and said goodbye to her. She was basically brain dead and on life support, and I couldn't go see her. My brother and sister were there, and my dad was there, and they put the phone up to her, and I basically just said goodbye to her. And I was really close with my mom. I was the firstborn. Like I said, she had me when she was 20. My dad traveled quite a bit.
Yeah.
We just formed one of those, mother-son bonds where I helped her grow up.
Yeah.
I would see things that she was really naive. Being sick growing up, she was kept from a lot of things, and so her mom kept her in a bubble.
Yeah.
And so by the time I was 6, I was like explaining to her stuff that she didn't see. And so she began to lean on me for stuff and trusted me for stuff, and that was just that kind of relationship. And so, they think her dying and me being in that state probably slammed my nervous system. And so everything spiraled after that.
Sure.
I don't remember feeling overly like devastated. Sarah would probably tell you something different, but they think it had like a physiological effect or whatever you want to call it on my body in that state. And like anything else, if you get something dramatic or traumatic done when you're already in a debilitated or vulnerable state, it's why you don't let somebody go back in with CTE or a concussion and play and get a second concussion. The effects of that second concussion when you're already in a concussed state is like 10 times worse than the first concussion, because you're adding trauma to somebody in a vulnerable state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I say this all the time because I used to work at Walgreens, so I would see lots of elderly people coming in, and some would be really, really old, and some would be very youthful and have lots of energy, but and I talked to a lot of them, and I would always be like, I was just genuinely curious, like what's the key to how you are. And the thing I found is that I feel like almost everybody that was like youthful or in good health, they were not like fully retired. They were always like doing something. They always had something that they were excited about. And then you talk to somebody who's like 60 years old and literally looks like they're 90. And they're just like, yeah, I'm retired. I don't do much. And so not that you didn't have anything to live for anymore, but part of your subconscious may have been battling through this because you wanted to make sure that you can see your mom. And then all of a sudden that happens. And a part of you was just like, well, I don't have that to fight for anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think it might have been even beyond the psychological. I think some things happen on a cellular level that we'd love to be able to articulate because we're humans and we want to explain everything.
Like that connection, the energy connection.
I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, but they think it just slammed my nervous system essentially. And, I basically spiraled, and my oxygen levels dipped. I had pneumonia. We had called to try to get some monoclonal antibodies. So some ladies came and gave me that, but it was kind of too late. And so Sarah basically called 911, and the ambulance took me away. And
so when you're in this state, like what happened? Like, so you're laying there, and did you like pass out, or what? Yeah,
I'm barely conscious. I'm barely conscious at home.
Tired, or like,
yeah,
like is your brain active and your body's just like not able to do? What
it's like being drunk, kind of like incapacitated. But I'm also somebody who's always taken inventory, so I have memory of being in that state. Like I just am always, this is my personality, is always mapping situations.
That's me too.
And so like I was cognizant of the degree of it. I can remember the EM, the EMTs or whatever, what would you call them, first responders, or whoever shows up in the ambulance. I remember them walking me down the stairs. Probably was cracking some sarcastic jokes because that's just the icebreaker. I was a little detached from how serious it was. Sarah knew because she had been in touch with her friend and was monitoring the numbers. I remember the ride to the hospital in the back of the yard, feeling kind of like, okay, this is good, because they're here to take care of me.
Yeah.
But I was also scared. I mean, I was like, and I was also like, this is ironic. I was this vocal. I can remember saying I will die on this hill in text messages to buddies who were on the other side of the coin, saying I'm willing to die on this hill.
Yep.
And remember thinking, oh shit, okay, I'm going to die on this hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make me a martyr? Is that a good thing? I don't really know.
No, but it is unique because, like you said, not many people were speaking out, and there was consistent posts or just things from you over that time. I do remember seeing those things, and I happen to lean more so the way that you do with that topic. So I liked seeing those things because not many people were saying
Right.
like every other thing on the news was the opposite.
Right.
And so yeah, it is interesting that somebody that was so outspoken was now
Got what he deserved.
in the back of the ambulance.
Got what he fucking deserved, man.
Hey, and unfortunately, it's sad that some people probably said that.
Of course.
okay.
And they should. They have that right. Basically, what happened is I had severe pneumonia, and I was spiraling down, and they put me into not the intensive care. What's the one right before that? Now there's a term for it. It's not the ICUs. It's. I should look it up just for the sake of being credible. But it was a step before that. I wasn't an ICU. It was they basically had to, create an environment where they could reduce any stress. I was on oxygen. Okay, heated oxygen, heated flow they called it, because I wasn't getting enough oxygen breathing on my own.
How come heated?
So your body doesn't have to change the temperature of it.
Oh, okay. Just keep,
Yeah. So that's a great question.
No stress at all, like not even inner body stress.
Yep. So think about that think about that in real logical terms, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a situation where you're really sick or your life's in jeopardy, something that small makes the difference in your recovery because you're not relying on the body to do it. So anything you take away from the body having to do on its own allows the body to focus on survival.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. It's not more complex than that. Now, it's way more complex when you get into the science of it, of course.
Right.
But that's it in a nutshell. And so that's why they created an environment with low stimulation, right? Comfortable temperatures. Don't eat much. Make sure you get the hydration and some basic nutrients. But the idea is we're going to give your body every chance possible to win.
Focus on
to win
one
this.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To keep, which is what your body wants to do. That's
Right.
the instinct, okay? So now, and I'm taking inventory. Like, right, I'm the dude on a flight. When we hit turbulence, I just look at the flight attendants.
Me too.
Because it's like, okay, this is their thing. Oh, they strapped themselves in and they're calling their loved ones. That's a bad sign. So I take inventory like that.
That's so funny you say that. I literally say that to my wife because she doesn't fly very well, and she'll be grabbing hold of me. There's some turbulence, and I'm looking, and I'm like, babe, look, they're walking down the aisle. You're fine, So
Yeah, and so I was reading body language of nurses and doctors, and so even in that state, I was mapping, let's call it, and I'll get back to mapping when we get into talking about coaching. I hope we save time for that because coaching is a religion for me.
Yeah, we'll have some time.
Okay, but I was mapping all this, and I had to sign off. Sarah signed off on some sort of. They basically were like, look, here's the situation. You're not in good shape. You have full blown pneumonia. You can't breathe without oxygen, and if we get to, a certain state, we got to put you in the ICU. Mm-hmm. And I knew what that meant. I mean, I'd read enough stories. People in the ICU were starting, there were some issues where if you put them on a ventilator, that was like maybe the end.
Yep.
Maybe they would lose, kidney function and things like that. And I was like, holy crap. And if you go back and look at my text messages to Sarah at the time, it was like, can you believe this? Like, can you effing believe this? I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm really scared. I can't believe this.
Yeah.
And even like, do you think I should have got vaccinated and stuff like that? And she's like, well, don't think about that now. And, everything, being very positive. And I'm just like, okay, this is a big deal. Okay, maybe I'm dying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm dying.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm dying, what does that mean? If I don't die, this is going to be pretty fucking rad.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty fucking rad because I don't know anybody who's older who doesn't have some story, some close call, doesn't have a few feathers in their cap.
Yep.
And so I was like, maybe this will be a sweet feather in my cap. I got to be aware of this process in case that is the case. I have to like take inventory as we do this. I was getting worse, and I could tell that I was getting worse because the flight attendant / main doctor came in. And she knelt down next to me. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Oh, no. She's going to get really, like, loving and maternal with me. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hey, Eric, so your numbers aren't good. And we just can't seem to get them, to go in the direction we want. We're going to move you. So I had just been in normal care at that point. That's when they moved me. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's where I mishmashed the timeline a little bit. They moved me to that step right before ICU. They said, we're going to move you. You're going to get your better facilities. You're going to get round the clock, so-and-so. And, someone will be in here shortly to move you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, shit. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. Mm-hmm. And I can hear the machines beeping still. And someone comes in. And at that point, they had given me like an experimental like arthritic medication or something that we had to sign off on that wasn't supposed to be used for that. It was an emergency use for this. Sarah signed off, gave me that. There was no sign that was helping. I had taken those monoclonal antibodies. I had gotten my hands on ivermectin. Mm. We decided it was too late in the process to take it. Mm. There was still there was risk involved in all that stuff. So we just decided not to take that. That was before I even got to the hospital. So whatever we had been doing was not working. And so they come in with this bed, and they transfer me to one of these beds that they're going to roll me out of there or whatever. And so they had come in intermittently and told me, stay on your stomach as much as you can. It's just good for your lungs.
Stay on your stomach.
Yep. I was like, okay, I'll try. Huh. Super uncomfortable. These beds have a little bit of a, whatever. Plus, I wanted to watch TV.
Right.
I mean, it's just super basic stuff. Like, but I'd try, and then I'd get uncomfortable. My back would hurt or whatever, and I'd roll back onto my back. Well, this guy is rolling me into this. I wish I could remember what it's called. It's not intensive care. It's progressive care. Mm. Okay, progressive care. He's rolling me there, and he's like, bro, that's your ticket out of here. I was on my stomach. I was like, what? He goes, that's your ticket out of here. Stay in your stomach. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, if you stay in your stomach, your lungs have a fighting chance. It takes all the weight off of them. I go,
crazy.
Why didn't anybody tell me that? And in my head, I'm like, they've mentioned it, but they didn't frame it like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking him that, and he's like, oh, I'm sure they have. It's really important. And I was like, why don't people do it? He goes, I don't know. It's uncomfortable. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. That's a pretty big piece of information.
Yep. But what I realized is, this is the sort of the epiphany I had. So they rolled me in that room, and I didn't get off my stomach.
Yeah.
Didn't get off my stomach. And it became like you're on the treadmill, and the end of that sesh, when you have every reason to not keep going, but then you create some whatever incentive, some carrot to keep going. Maybe you got to hit that number. Maybe you're trying to get that, I don't know, you're trying to do it in a certain time, or
I envision
picturing your gross ass body.
Dude, I
in
envision
a picture
my
you saw.
kids. This is the weirdest shit. I envision my kid like hanging off the side of a cliff. And
you're running to get them?
If I don't finish, like hit whatever I'm trying to do that day, they'll fall.
Oh, man.
It's
That's
fucking
dark.
gruesome, but I swear to God, I'd finish every time.
Well, I mean, okay.
So I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's what it was like being on my stomach. Even though my life was in the balance, I still wanted to roll over. And I had an epiphany in that moment. I was like, we can't process the gravity of what it means to have a life and death decision to make. We can correlate it to a movie we've seen, some Stallone movie or some shoot 'em up movie or whatever. That's our reference. But we can't. It's too much for our brain to process. It didn't matter who framed it or how they framed it. I wasn't going to grasp how important it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they could have shook it into me, but I'm in a pretty effed up state. Nobody's going to be shaking me and telling me that. They're trying to be comforting and accommodating.
Yeah.
This dude found a way to say it in a way that resonated with me.
It's your ticket out of here.
It's your ticket out of here, man. That's all I was hoping for. And as somebody who grew up playing sports, and this is a good segue into sports, I had an opponent.
Yep.
Now I had an opponent.
Yep.
And I had a Rocky poster on my wall my kids gave me.
Yep.
Okay. And I was texting with people and I was fighting. I was saying all those things, but I didn't really know what I was fighting.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had control over the fight. I knew I wanted to live. I knew I was scared shitless to die. I knew I was fading. I knew I was getting sick, but I didn't know how to fight it. It wasn't something I could punch.
Yeah.
Most of the jargon I didn't understand. It's medical language, you know.
Yep.
You know, it's confusing, even if they say it in simple terms. But as soon as he gave me a directive, not only did I do it, but I started getting that feeling like I was in command. And so I laid on my stomach for fucking like 2 days.
Jeez.
And, dude, I started getting better.
Right away?
Just
Just from laying on your stomach?
Started getting better. I don't know if that's what it was. I mean, I was on that arthritic medication, right? I was, being positive. I had pictures of my family, which they'll tell you when you're in that position. They'll tell you that that's unbelievably helpful. Sounds trivial. Everybody loves somebody. No, not everybody does. I watched them wheel carcasses by my door of people who didn't have someone who sent a card for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know where they were at in their state of life, but they didn't have that something. There's a real tangible effect to having that sense that the outside world is there waiting for you, rooting for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so who knows to what degree all that stuff helped?
You know what it was? It was my text.
Well, okay, you say that in a joking manner, but I'm telling you, it had a huge effect. Not just your text, everybody's text.
Right.
Hearing from people when you're a relatively unlikable guy, and I don't say it for like I'm not looking for a hug or like, yeah, you're a good guy.
You just know who you are.
Yeah, I've never been somebody people root for. I've said this since then. I've actually written it out that way because I started outlining a book about stuff that I actually shared a little bit of like the early outline or whatever. And one of the things I say is I've never been somebody people root for. I'm really not, for a lot of reasons, and big chunk of which is my own doing. Like I'm not really comfortable being somebody people root for. I like when you don't like me or root for me. I'd like you to respect me. I'd like for you to, value maybe your conversations, but you start to like me, I start to think there's something wrong with you. And we could probably, that's a different podcast,
Yeah.
why you go there. But so I'm really comfortable not being liked. And in fact, I concoct scenarios and dynamics so that maybe you don't like me. I push envelopes or make people uncomfortable for that reason. So I'm not comfortable being rooted for.
But in that moment,
Oh, dude, it felt so good.
Yeah.
Felt so good. You cannot imagine in that state, because you got to remember you're stripped down now. Like not only are you sick, so you're vulnerable, but they've now peeled away all the stimulation.
Yeah.
So that the core, right, the fire, that fire that's in there, whatever that is really all that's going on. And that's part of why I think, and I can start to talk about now the perspective when you're in that state. That's why I think that like memories become very clear and crisp, because the ones that define you are now very prominent. You no longer have all these layers. You don't have you've lost weight, so those layers are starting to peel away. But psychologically, all of that weight has been peeled away.
Yeah.
And so now you're in touch with some shit that is at the core of who you are.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, your principles, your values, biologically, you're at the core now. You feel that. You're very exposed, but you're also very perceptive. And so that's the state that I was in. And so I was able to like as I'm getting better, now I'm in this state. Now it's like the endorphins are strong, the perspective's strong. But when you send a text and somebody's in that state, it lands not like a text you get from me on a Monday afternoon when everything's hunky-dory.
Yeah.
You kind of check it, thanks, reach out, thumbs up back, smiley face back. Oh yeah, that's right. Thanks for reminding.
Now then there's 20 other distractions.
Every text felt like a hug, man. Every text felt like a dab. Every
Yeah.
text, and the ones that landed the best were the ones that people kept it real. Okay, so what happened when I was in that state is the dudes, especially the ones I've known the longest, were like, "Don't be a pussy."
Love that.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
Don't be such a fucking pussy.
Yeah.
This one dude who I've known forever, Mike, said, "You're an asshole. You've always been an asshole. You're going to stop being an asshole now?
Yeah.
Be an asshole to this." And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He wasn't like saying goodbye.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying, "You got this."
Yeah. Prayers up.
He was like, "Hey." And I was like, whoa. But then the women in my life, all the women were nurturing.
Yeah.
Girlfriends I dated in 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Girls I knew from college. "Hey, we love you.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
We need you.
Yeah.
Be strong." Nurturing me, right? Nurturing me.
Mm-hmm.
You got the dudes, iron sharpening iron, kicking me in the nuts going, "Where's the brawn?"
Yeah.
You got the women going, "Here, I got you. We love you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me nurture you."
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And in that state, it couldn't have been more pronounced.
Yeah.
And I needed them both. I needed it both.
Yep.
I needed it both. I needed the masculinity, I needed the femininity, and it fucking brought me back to life, dude.
Yeah.
And laying on my stomach, and who knows what medicine, and those unbelievable doctors who are at wit's end, and my family, and all of it. And when you turn that corner, and the doctor comes in and goes, "Wow, you're getting better."
Yeah.
I was out of there in less than 48 hours.
It's crazy.
From that time.
Yeah.
And it was a feather in my cap. Like I hoped it would be once I turned the corner. I had a new perspective on things. And what I learned was, you don't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anybody says.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anybody says. You don't want to die. We want to live. There's a reason animals' instinct is to live. You back them into a corner, they'll fight to the death. It's because that instinct is legit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Which led me to think our instincts on everything are pretty damn good. Okay? The other thing I learned is, I'm in this stripped down state. I had no ego. No ego. So your ego goes away. What I realized is your ego is a concoction. Your ego is there as a defense mechanism. Your ego is a how should we describe it? It's like alcohol. It's false.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us need it, gets us through a meeting or pumps us up or whatever, but my ego is completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't laying there going, who's going to sleep with my wife when I'm gone? Which is
Right.
what I would have thought I would think about before I die.
Right.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
It wasn't that at all. It was.
It's funny you say that because I probably would think the same thing.
You wouldn't, though. When your ego's gone, the silliness of all that bravado is silly. It just is. It's just silly. And things up that are driven by ego, Fox News, CNN, bickering, when that was on, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Is that theatrical and gross?
Yeah. Toxic.
Which we all know that, but it's like, it doesn't poison us on a regular basis because we're so poisoned already by all of it.
Right.
That was jarring to me.
Yeah.
I didn't have any regrets. I had no regrets. I wished I would have told my wife more often that,
Yeah.
I really love you and I really appreciate you.
She did an amazing job.
Yeah, I know she did.
She did.
I know she did.
I mean, like, I think you were. I'm trying to remember back. I think you were documenting some of it yourself, weren't you? Were you posting on social a little?
God,
bit
I must have been
yourself?
taking when I was getting better. I think I was starting to take some pictures.
But I know, like, there was pretty consistent updates from Sarah, if I recall, which I think kept a lot of people involved and possibly reaching out to you and saying those.
She
things
would
they
relay
said
stuff to me. Yeah. But I would go, I wouldn't be able to get on my phone for hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, over New Year's Eve, I remember my phone was binging, but I just was too incapacitated to do anything.
No, but she did a really good job. So
yeah, and I, you learn stuff about people when things are tough, and she was like in her element, making sure everything was tight and right, and it's a game changer, 100%. And I remember thinking I should probably be more outwardly verbal about my appreciation for her, but I didn't have any other regrets. All the stuff that I'd said on Facebook, I felt validated. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I had doctors sneak into my room and say, "We have no idea how to treat this.
Sure.
We have no idea if the vaccine works. This is an uncaged animal. This is a caged animal that, in its own right, COVID. We don't know. Mm-hmm. We don't know. We have no idea. We know what we're supposed to say, and so I never felt like I was glad. I was really glad, even when I thought that it might be the end, that I had expressed those thoughts. Yeah. Which to me was like really empowering going forward. Like, you should always express what you think your truth is. You should always express what you think your truth is, because that'll be a regret at the end. It will be. It will be. And that's where I get really worked up about self-censoring. And we live in this state now where, damn, man, I'm like, we all feel like we got to censor ourselves. And when you start censoring yourself, it's hard to live. It's hard to be effective. It's hard to do the right thing. Everyone ends up confused. We can't find the right information. So that's one of the takeaways that, I really hang on to still. But like anything else, you get back better. I was like, I'll never drink a Diet Coke again. I was drinking Diet Coke a couple months later, right? I just felt, he felt so pure. I was like, I'm not going to do that to myself again. But at the end of the day, what I realized too is I was just hard to kill. I was hard to kill because I was in decent shape.
Well, and you had something to fight. I think that's you.
Once I had an opponent,
I'm telling you, I think that's a huge part of it. If you have something, I mean, if you're an athlete, I think you understand this. Like, if you have something to fight, to focus on as your opponent, it gives you a little bit more clarity to focus like your energy on.
Yeah,
that.
That's a real thing.
Yeah,
100%.
I think I use that in business all the time. I use it in life. I'm sure I'd use it in the face of death. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you I would. Mm-hmm. I would have to find the opponent of, like, what is it?
Yeah, and then the other thing is, like, life and death decisions don't have to feel like what you think a life and death decision should feel like based on a movie you've seen or a projection of what you think it must be because it has so much gravity. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. Mm-hmm. And so you could walk that back and go, okay, huge decisions are happening all the time, and you're not going to see them coming. It's the mortar between the bricks, the people you meet, the conversations you have. They're life-altering. Something as simple as me laying on my stomach was a life-changing decision that I could or could not have made based on discomfort in the short term. In the short term, my discomfort would have determined that outcome. How would that have affected my kids' lives?
Right.
Forever or whatever. I mean, and so if you take anything away from it, okay, just take away that they're all life and death decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Every little decision can amount to something large.
Yeah, they're all life and death decisions. So, I made lists and stuff that I think I told you earlier. I went back and looked at this list of stuff that I wanted to remember because I knew I was in this super pure state. And, it's just stuff like that. It's just like, everything's a life and death decision. Trust your instincts. Everything's simple. There's a simple explanation for everything. I wrote that down when I was in that state, which sometimes I don't even know what I meant at the time. I was very emotional.
Yeah.
I would cry for weeks and weeks and weeks about stuff.
Like after you got out?
Yeah, talking about it. Yeah. Or they wanted me on basically painkillers to not process my mom's death in the middle of all this.
Yeah, gosh.
And we postponed the funeral until the end of January so I could go.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, okay, I'll go on this stuff. I was willing to listen to the doctors on all this stuff. I got better, so I didn't want to fight whatever anybody said was the protocol for getting better. And I was trying to write her eulogy because I was going to be the one to give the eulogy, and I was just like numb. It was like I was writing about somebody else that died, or like my cat who had died.
Yeah.
And so I just decided then that I wasn't going to stay on that stuff. So I finished writing the eulogy, but I was on that stuff for I don't know, 2 weeks or something.
Gosh, your poor dad.
Yeah, it was hard for him.
He had a lot. I mean, obviously you guys all had a lot going on, but to lose his wife and then you being in the hospital.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, and my brother and sister too. And,
Yeah, your brother and sister.
My mom died, and it was all kind of about me, and they were cool with it. My brother and sister are super successful, super smart people. I mean, I'm the least successful in my family, least successful of my friends, and I want it that way. If I start, I want to be in a room full of really smart, successful people.
Be the dumbest person in the room, right?
I get really uncomfortable if it's not the dynamic, but they were great. And my mom's, I couldn't be there to help with anything, funeral planning. I couldn't be there to say goodbye. And then I got all the attention. They didn't get any attention after my mom died. And so they were fantastic. And, it was one of those things where now it's a story and traumatized my kids a little bit, but I wouldn't change it. You talk to people who go through stuff that's real serious. I wouldn't change it.
No, and honestly, it probably, I'm sure it was really hard on them, but I'm sure it taught them some things too,
Yeah.
And that it's just going to be something that they pick up over time as they become adults. And like the fact that they saw their dad go through that and how he fought and that it doesn't, you don't have to follow the herd, and do what everybody else says. You can still be successful in your own right by doing your own thing.
And trust your instincts.
Yeah,
you'll learn quickly if your instincts are off. And one of the things we've never really shielded our kids. I'm super honest with my kids. I really believe that there's a ton of value in. I let my kids swear. Okay. And the reason I let my kids swear is because I don't want to give much power to a word.
Yep.
But also I just think there's a lot of truth in it. Like there's times when I don't want them to think that if they hear Tyler Miller swear, he's the devil.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to understand context.
Right.
And so, they understand the gravity of that whole COVID situation. We might shield them from some stuff that's maybe potentially like really extreme. But for the most part, and this is how I coach, and let's segue into coaching here, okay? Because coaching to me is a religion, and when it's all said and done, I hope that coaching youth sports is what I'm remembered for. Okay, it seems clear it's not going to be any sweet business idea, although I have endless sweet business ideas. Okay, it's probably not going to be one. I don't think. It's going to be coaching. I think that's going to be the thing that I have the biggest impact on the most people. It's something I take a lot of pride in, and it's like a religion. And one of the linchpins of my coaching philosophy is honesty. It's to me, when you're honest with kids, even when it creates short-term discomfort, maybe especially when you're honest with them, they start to develop the ability to map. Okay, they can map the situation. They have an honest assessment of where they're at, and then they know if they have to go here to get better, if they have to go here to work on this, if they have to go there to be able to express themselves a certain way. All of their, because here's what you have to understand about kids: they know the truth. Kids know the truth. Okay, so if you and Ashley were having problems,
which we do. We will fight sometimes. It happens.
Let's say you're having, just fictionally speaking, you had serious problems, okay? Yeah. But you're keeping the kids. You're keeping from the kids, okay?
Right.
Maybe it's gotten so serious that you're even like maybe not sleeping at home a couple nights a week or whatever, okay? But you're there in the morning, just like you always are. You leave after they go to bed. You come there in the morning. Nothing in the daily routine has changed. Your kids would know. They would know based on the energy in the room.
Yeah.
They would know based on how you didn't laugh at her joke that you always laugh. Whatever it is, okay? And so they would know the truth. So when they ask you about what's going on, or ask you maybe even a leading question about what's going on, and you say, everything's cool, everything's fine, everything's fine. Okay, now they're confused.
I was going to say, now you're confusing them for sure.
Because their instinct is saying one thing, and the person they trust the most, their parent, is telling them another. Now, if anybody else told them something different, they might go, that person's an idiot. That person's a liar. But this is the person who they've gone to with everything and they trust the most, who's telling them something different. So now guess what happens? They lose confidence in their ability to assess. That has a devastating effect. when kids lose their confidence, we all know what that means, right? We all go bananas. What do they need? Do they need medication? What happened? Who bullied them?
Right.
Well, you just killed your kids' ability to trust their instincts because their instincts are dead on. You're lying to them, but they don't think of you as a liar because you're their parent. So as a coach, I have a similar role. And I want them to trust me to that level. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't do me any good to tell little Timmy that he's awesome or he deserves X, Y, or Z when Timmy knows. Timmy knows on the team where he fits in the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. He can see so-and-so. You talked about Cash. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Cash is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Cash is physically gifted. Cash also can solve this stuff really quickly. When you can do that in sports, it gives you a huge advantage at a young age because not everybody is up to that speed yet.
That's what I tell Jameson all the time. I'm like, it's not always the physical stuff, buddy. It's the mental. And like you hear the saying all the time, like, man, if I knew if I knew now what I knew back then, or whatever the saying is, where you could go back with mm-hmm. your mentality currently, you'd be so much better. And it's true mm-hmm. because it's like watching my daughter play basketball mm-hmm. at 8, and then none of them she was so nervous to play mm-hmm. because she didn't understand the rules. She didn't understand what to do. So we worked with her, and then she started to feel better. Mm-hmm. But you still she gets the ball, and you can still see like the panic. Mm-hmm. It's not because she can't go to the hoop and make a shot. She's incredibly athletically gifted, just like Sailor is. Mm-hmm. But she
it's all psychological.
She doesn't get it,
and that's where practice makes something routine. When mm-hmm. something becomes routine, then you're anticipating. It's not just that you're comfortable. When you start anticipating what's next, you're faster than the speed of the game.
Yep.
Okay, it's like anything else. Like that's what they always say about young quarterbacks in the NFL. It's just too fast for them. It's too fast. Well, it's because they can't anticipate. Because that D end is faster than the corner that they went against in college.
Yeah.
And so when you can process information quickly, it's a huge advantage at a young age. And I don't know why Cash does it so well. I have some suspicions, though. It's based a little bit on the conversations we've had. I never let him have an iPad when he was in the back seat. Mm-hmm. Oh, Eric, why? You think technology is going to fry his brain? No. I wanted to look out the window. I wanted him to know when we left our house exactly what it looked like going to Nana and Papa's. Mm-hmm. So he could map it. Mm-hmm. He had a sense of time. He had a sense of space. He had a sense of the landmarks. He started to not only know that, but then he had confidence in his ability to assess. When you say Nana and Papa's, he has a vision in his head relative to where he lives that house is. Mm-hmm. You give him an iPad when he gets in the car at a young age. Put on Mickey. You want me to do my Mickey impression?
Do your Mickey impression,
please. Hey, everybody. It's time for the Tyler Miller Obvious Choice Cast. Hot dog. When you put that on for the kid, they go into a space that is detached from time and space, okay? They go into a place that's detached from time and space. So they arrive at Nana and Papa's with no sense of where it is relative to where they started.
Right.
Who cares? Well, it matters. It matters because they didn't map that. Mm-hmm. Guess what else they're not mapping? The dynamics in relationships. They're not mapping the speed and time and pace of life. Mm-hmm. They're not mapping. They don't know their role. They don't know where they are relative to anything. They can't read a room as they get older. Yep. And guess what? You don't get a chance to make that up.
Nope.
You don't get a chance to make that up. So these young people, and there's all kinds of science that documents this, and there's a billion different opinions. So you can always find something on every side of the coin if you want.
Absolutely.
But I'm of the cloth that they are as impressionable as they'll ever be when they're really young. Mm-hmm. And so when you start installing fundamentals, and that's their constitution, what happens in those 0 to 5 or 0 to 3 or 1 to 4, whatever years, ends up being the foundational stuff. And then you can play later. You can play later.
Yep.
But if you neglect those things in those first years, you neglect to allow them to map distance, time, and space. Mm-hmm. You neglect to let them feel some discomfort so they start to develop tools to A, know adversity is normal, but then B, how do I deal with it, mm-hmm. right? How do I get through this pain without medicating it or whatever? Not to saying you don't medicate here and there. That's a very real positive thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But if it's the first option.
Yeah, if you turn right to it.
Mm-hmm, I think you're going to end up with a lifetime of that, chasing that dragon.
Yep.
But B, not really ever dealing with the root of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, back to coaching, I feel a responsibility to help map these kids map. And so I'm honest with them. I'm really honest with them about, and it's not for everybody. Okay. But I feel like in our culture, I'm going to say this really clearly, okay, because this will be something you can clip and use as a tease and create some controversy, okay?
Yeah.
In our culture, I don't think there's anybody more important in a community than the youth sport coach. Nobody.
And
okay.
Why?
Parent, obviously, yes. Okay, starts with parent. Outside of parent or grandparent, okay, when you start going beyond family, there's nobody more important in a community than a youth sport coach, okay? And the reason is, there's a bunch of reasons. One, they're around your kid a lot, okay? They're around your kid a lot. But they're around your kid in an environment where they are doing something they don't do anywhere else anymore, which is compete. Compete for an outcome. And that outcome is not being manufactured. The outcome is the direct result of what happens in the course of that practice, that game, what have you, okay? Those skills are the most important skills we have. And they're not getting them taught to them anywhere else. If you're teaching them at home, hats off to you. I know which kids are being taught that at home because I teach kids in football season, I teach kids in basketball season, I teach kids in baseball season. I'm the head coach of a basketball team this year, traveling basketball team. I've been the head coach of a baseball team for 5 years. I've always been an assistant for football, okay? I'm around these kids enough to know exactly who's getting that education at home. And so the ones aren't, I know my role and my responsibility is huge. I really feel like you have to learn to deal with adversity, to trust your instincts, to compete for an outcome, and you're not getting it in the school system. Teachers are super important, but their hands are tied. Okay, they've got to adhere to another agenda and a whole set of rules and a bureaucracy and all that stuff that you don't when you're trying to win games, compete in practice, win a drill. They're not doing that in a classroom. Maybe here and there, there's elements of it. But on the whole, it's not happening. And I know it's not happening in a lot of homes.
I agree.
And the issues I've ever had in coaching, it's 95% positive feedback. Okay, it's thank yous. It's awesome. This has been incredible. I didn't know volunteer coaches could have this kind of impact, which, by the way, we volunteer. So conflate that in your head. The most important people in your community with regards to your kids writing their constitution. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Okay? Not babysitting them. Writing their constitution. How they approach adversity. How they solve problems. How they set goals. How they learn to interact with teammates. How they do it on a fly. How they think about their body in space. How they realize that what they eat and drink equates to success. It's pretty heavy.
That's why I love sports, man.
You've got volunteers in charge of that. They're vetted now. They weren't when I was a kid. There's trusted coaches and there's these things. But they're volunteers. They're spending all this time free of charge doing this, and the responsibility is massive. And so I take it really seriously. I try to win. I think it's important. Now, winning is not a goal. Okay, winning's a byproduct. I want to state that very clearly because that gets confused. And anybody who wants to sort of criticize coaches will always go to that. They'll say, you're trying to win. It's a kid's game. What are you doing? And the reality is you have to have winning on the table because you have to have an objective.
It's like the COVID thing. You got to have the opponent to
Mm-hmm.
attack, right? And I know what you're getting at. When you're doing drills, you're doing practices, you're all doing it for the outcome to show that you're getting better and putting it all together, working
measuring
as a
stick,
team,
yep.
which hopefully results in some wins. So I agree 100%.
And it's a goal.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not that different than money. Okay, I've never set making money as a goal, maybe to my detriment. But money is a measuring stick. It's a tool, and it's a byproduct of sort of doing things right in a society that's designed around money. And to me, winning is that. Okay, you can get away with not making a lot of money, or you're going periods of time when you're not making any money. If maybe you're pursuing something that's more passionate, or maybe you have a startup that's losing money. But at the end of the day, it's a measuring stick to whether you're on course or not. You're not in fantasy land. It keeps you rooted in reality, and that's what winning does in terms of coaching. You have to have it, and it has to be used as a measuring stick. If it becomes a goal and you're not doing things right, well, then that becomes a potential issue, because maybe you cheat to win. If you cheat to get money, what are you? You're a crook. Okay, so that's that. Or you're ignoring principles and values and sportsmanship. Okay, then you're an asshole. No, you can't do that. But you have to have it on the table. You have to. And so winning is a part of the program. And will always be a part of the program as long as I coach. And when we're not winning, I have to assess what's going wrong. Okay? A lot of times that's a great opportunity to assess what's going wrong. So it's a great chance to walk through the truth. And we do that. So I'll give you an example. This 9 AAA baseball team, which is incredible. Okay? They're super talented. We won the MBT state tournament. Okay? We should have won the Gopher state tournament, which is more prestigious, and it was before that. Part of what we ended up doing in the MBT state tournament later in the year was a byproduct of us not doing well in that first tournament. But the reason it ended up being a positive is because of how we addressed it. Okay, so we were a strike away from winning the Gopher State Championship, okay, which is a big deal when you set a goal and you come together as a collective, and it's traveling baseball and all that stuff, and it's a big stage. We fell apart. We just fell apart. We made a series of errors, and then we got sad, and as a coach, I made a bunch of errors. It's a new stage for me and whatever. And we went to practice that next Monday, and we, as a group of coaches, Billy and Phil and Brian, we decided that, we were going to tackle this head on. Line the kids up. I had a white erase board that I had drawn a beautiful picture of a bear. I drew a stick figure to the left of the bear and a can of prime to the right of the bear, because a can of prime, man.
Oh my gosh.
Is there a more glorious goal for any kid? And I'm talking the can.
Oh yeah.
Right? That they can't have.
Yeah.
And I said, we're going through the damn bear. What's the bear? The bear's the truth. The truth of the situation. Okay. So-and-so, and I won't even use their name because they're kids, but so-and-so. What happened on that play? Okay. You all think so-and-so was the reason we didn't win that. Well, guess what, so-and-so? What happened in the bottom of that inning when you still had an at-bat and you struck out? Okay? That game wasn't over. But what about that ground ball 2 innings before that when you weren't willing to get in front of it? Do you think that outcome, we would have got to the point when so-and-so would have made that error? Each one of them were culpable, okay? And it was for 9-year-olds, I think some people would think, well, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Okay? But that was the bear. And what I wanted them to know is we're not going to make it an elephant in the room that no one talks about. It's a bear we're going to go through. We're going to fight this bear. And the other side of it is something awesome.
Yeah.
Okay? One kid, he was convinced his hit was fair. The refs got it wrong. It was a fair ball. We would have won the state. If it was fair, I said it was foul. No, it was a fair ball. So-and-so told me. I said it was foul. Okay? It was foul. And it was. Our third base coach saw it clear as day. But he's hanging on to that. It was a way of escaping sort of the accountability component. Seems trivial.
But it holds you back.
But it seems trivial, right? It's like, we'll just let it. It doesn't matter. But what if that's established as a standard? Let's extrapolate out, right? Let's amortize that non-accountability over the course of the next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, his marriage, whatever else.
Yeah.
You think I'm being silly, but I'm not.
No.
Because this is Constitution writing stuff.
Yeah.
We went through it, and I didn't let any of them get out of that line. We ended up just playing wiffle ball that day to keep it light because we were coming off, we were the number one team in the state, and we will be again this year.
Yeah.
We 10-runned everybody in the next tournament. I think that load was off of us. We coached better, and we made it a goal. We said we're after this. We got to write this wrong and all that stuff. And that doesn't always sit well with parents when you're that honest. And anytime I have really negative feedback, and I get it. I get negative feedback. It's always from somebody who's not honest with their kids at home. And so I'm a threat. They've got to drive home, and they've got to make a really difficult decision as to whether admit that they're full of it or let Eric be the one to enlighten them. And for the most part, that's 2 L's. They don't want either of those choices.
Yeah.
So they choose the third, which is to villainize me.
Yeah.
Which ultimately is really hard on the kid.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, kids know the truth.
Right.
They know where they stand. The other thing I love about sports, it doesn't lie. Sports is its own truth. The numbers don't lie. The results don't lie. You can't lie to yourself and get the outcome you want.
Yep.
It's not a simulation. It's not a video game. It's not a movie. It's not academia. Okay? Academia, for all its gloriousness, you can go and just write a term paper, call it a business plan, get a grade on it, and it never gets tested against the market.
Right.
It's a theory. And if one professor decides it's a good theory, you get a great grade and you feel like a winner. Well, guess what? I don't know if you're a winner. You didn't sell anything. The people haven't spoken. Mm-hmm. But sports isn't that way. And I think it's one of the reasons sports is as popular. It's more popular than ever. Mm-hmm. The values of franchises are through the roof, and they'll continue to go through the roof because people crave that. That's tens of thousands of years of conditioning baked into our DNA that wants that.
Yeah.
Okay? And we're not allowed to get it anywhere else. And so sports is positioned now in a way that it is almost the last place you can get it. And so I take it really seriously when I coach these kids.
Yeah.
And they're really good and we're really successful. Okay? And it works. And you can't argue with the results.
Yeah.
And I trust that process. And so I can sit here and tell you right now that we'll win the state championship in baseball this year. Okay? I can tell you this. So Little League and traveling are split in this town. I don't know if you know that. It goes back years and years and years. It's an unfortunate thing. So we actually have the talent pool divided. If we all got together and played Little League, this team in this town, and this is a testament to them, not me, by the way. We have great coaches in this town. We would go to Little League World Series with this team. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. If I was head coaching the Little League team, with the way we do things and the guys we have, Billy, Phil, Brian, Paul, Dustin, all of us got together, this whole town would go on a ride.
Yeah.
We'd go on a ride. Okay? That's how good what we're doing is and how good these kids are.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
It's not even up for debate.
Yeah.
And so I take it really seriously. I'm really dedicated. I hope it's what I'm remembered for after this adventurous life. With all these stories that I'll have to share in part 2.
Yeah. Where are we at for time? Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I've got time, but... I
got about 10, 15 more minutes.
Okay. It's the most important thing. And if I ever have problems, it's with families that don't tell their kids the truth. And I get it, but I feel bad for the kids. And it's not going to change the way I do things because... The truth is the truth is still, even in this world we live in, where we want to fantasize about to me, the truth is still sexy. I don't know that it is for everybody else. And if we continue to create a world that is so fictional, maybe we'll get to a point where the truth really is obsolete. But to me, it's still sexy.
I think it's still refreshing. You know what I mean?
I think it's sexy.
Well, I agree. It's very sexy, especially if it was named Eric.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I agree. Like it's, you were talking about like ego earlier and how like you just didn't have it. And I think it's just, it's this thing we have to have because everyone else has it. So it's like your defense mechanism, right?
And
it's kind of related to like truth where it's easier, it's more accepted to not be so honest and truthful because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But as soon as you're in an environment where you don't need to worry about the truth hurting people, it becomes refreshing. It becomes, you just drop the layers and you're just like, yeah, let's just all stop fucking around and stop trying to pretend that we're all perfect at whatever, living the Facebook life.
What's the worst case scenario if you're honest?
You might offend somebody.
But you're gonna offend the right. I mean, you're gonna offend the wrong. You're gonna offend the right person because you want to know that. I want to know that that's where you stand. I mean, it's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to finding out what people are really about. And you're in sales.
I agree.
I mean, and I'm launching this magazine.
Yeah.
So I'm in sales now. I mean, I'm in sales, and I've been in sales. I've done other stuff. I've done consulting, and I've done some really cool things with some really powerful people and powerful companies. And I've always found I've always found that if elements of truth are still the way to go, man. Mm-hmm. So this magazine, okay, let's talk about this really quick, okay?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, I've got this content background. I worked for ESPN out of college. I worked on SportsCenter, and
which was my dream job, by the way.
It was a lot of people's dream job.
When I was like 18,
yep.
Would have loved it.
Yep, and you can give me a clock if you're tight. I mean, I have time. I've arranged to have someone pick up cash, so if you, depending on your schedule, you can give me, I'll read your body language. That's what I do. But
I'll give you a signal.
Okay, yeah, do that.
Fingers.
But so it was my dream job too.
Yeah.
Bristol, Connecticut ended up being like kind of on a Navy ship. It was just dudes, and like when you're 22, 23, once the novelty wore off, it was like time to get out of there. But I have this like content creation background. I wrote like a Nerf Illustrated in high school and handed them out after we played Nerf on weekends, and so creating magazines and things like that are.
I used to do stuff like that too. It's funny you say that. Yeah,
it's just in me. So the fact that I got away from it, and I hosted a radio show, a sports radio show for Good Karma Broadcasting, which is a great company. They're still around. They work with ESPN now. Craig Karmas and his dad Mel discovered Howard Stern, and I think Mel was the CEO of Sirius satellite radio at one point.
Oh,
but
wow.
His son Craig was a young entrepreneur and had a radio station, and so I hosted a radio show for him when I was 26, 27 years old.
Yeah.
I've created content my whole life. I wanted to be a screenwriter. I wrote a screenplay called Stan the Man about a fictional guy. It seemed really genius at the time. Now, 15 years later, it seems really outdated, so I won't bore you with the details. This magazine is a chance for me to do that again. Okay, like create this, like scratch this itch, something that comes really naturally to me that I also really love. And now I'm doing it in this community. I'm basically putting together a community magazine that is going to shine a light on the best parts. Not so different than what you're doing with this podcast. And there's going to be a podcast associated with it. It's through a parent company that handles all the infrastructure stuff, so I'm not loaded down with that burden. I just get to publish, write, and then, of course, I have to sell to get it up off the ground. But I'm looking for partners who are interested in, obviously, having their customers here. The magazine goes to 4,000 homes. In addition, there's digital stuff if you want to do, 70,000 impressions in that same footprint right in Blaine. It goes to homeowners. They use home ownership to figure out kind of who it goes to. So there's a little bit of affluence, people with some disposable income. Not that there isn't value in people who aren't homeowners, but I was a renter for a long time. I was in a different state of mind. I wasn't interested in upkeep. I didn't have disposable income to buy products and services. So it just doesn't set up well for partners if that's not who it goes to. So this is a little bit of a premier partnership with the neighbors, and then you bring in these premier businesses, and there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
Which I knew that there were, but having now spent the last couple months meeting with small business owners, there's some unbelievable stuff going on here. And so this is a platform for those businesses to reach the people of Blaine in a slightly different way, in a community way, align yourself in Facebook and print, align yourself with this really cool magazine where we're talking about really interesting families, people up to interesting stuff, kids in the community doing cool things. All of that's going to be highlighted in this Blaine Neighbors is what it's going to be called. And so I am still looking for partners, and there is still a chance to get some of the preprint discounts for launching at the start of the year. So anybody interested, obviously a ton of people, recommendations are the most powerful thing in the world. You can let me know if you hear back or anything like that. But it's a go, and I've already got some unbelievable partners. In fact, I have some gifts for you, one of which is from a partner.
Really?
We can get into that. But yeah, so I have this content creation background, and so I'm going to do this. And some people roll their eyes and go, "Oh, another direct mail, blah, 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 whatever." This is not what it's going to be.
No,
I wouldn't put my name on it. I wouldn't, and you'll know real quickly if I can't get it to where I want because it'll cease to exist. Okay, I will not put my name on something that isn't interesting, that people aren't looking forward to getting, doesn't have some buzz, doesn't have something in it you didn't expect or didn't already know.
Right.
10 years from now, I think as this community grows, which is happening. Some cool things are happening here.
Yeah.
I want this magazine to sort of walk not only in lockstep with it, but sort of help facilitate that growth. Because this town, I grew up in the West Metro. I told you that, I think briefly, right? This was like gas up your car on the way to the cabin country. And we came up here because my wife's parents lived up here. And we've been up here 10 years now, dude. I'm in love with it. I'm in love with this place. I'm in love with what's happening. I'm in love with the people. I'm in love with the infrastructure. I'm in love with the sports scene. Okay, so I have a goal to make this the youth sports capital of the world. I talked to the mayor about it. I mean, I think he thought I was a little bit of a maniac. like requesting to have breakfast with him to chat about this.
Yeah.
But I really think that there's a chance to kind of brand the city that way. We've got this National Sports Center, which is the largest. That dome's, I think, the largest indoor youth facility in the country. Maybe Houston has one that's close, or it's first or second.
Do you know? I can't say what I need to say on air to you, so I can say it after. But do you know what they're bringing to Blaine?
The promenade.
They're bringing something for sports.
Is it?
Have you heard about it yet?
Can I say if I know, or
don't
I can't?
Well, don't say it.
Okay.
But do you like?
Is it-
So yeah.
Yeah.
You know that.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's what I'm thinking.
Because that's
huge.
Will be major just for, I think there'll be probably a way to tie it into the youth sports scene as well.
It's
You know what
all
I mean?
connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And so this is what I tell
I
my
agree. Blaine is amazing, and that's why I'm passionate about it too. I grew up in Champlin. I hated Blaine growing up. You know, they're our rivals.
Yeah, you have to hate them.
And you know, I don't know anything about it, and then you get here and you're just like, wow, there is so much going on in this city compared to pretty much anywhere else. And it's just like people still think it's too far north sometimes, and
Which is fine. I mean, I'm fine with you having that opinion. I mean, I grew. So my friends all stayed in the West Metro. My brother, Wayzata, you know, they have their opinions on stuff. Good people, motivated people, hardworking people, really successful people. I challenge them. Tell me another community that's got an airport, has youth facilities, sports facilities like we have, has a professional golf tournament.
yeah,
Find one.
yeah,
Find one.
yeah,
Show me one.
yeah. And
Show me one in the
That's
Midwest.
just scratching the surface. But
Show me
yeah.
one in the Midwest. And then we've got the leaders that are doing the things that they're doing, the growth, the diversity.
Yeah.
Okay. Things are happening here. We've got room to grow. Okay. We're not confined.
Which is
okay?
kind of exciting.
There's room to grow. And so 10 years from now, I think you're going to find that this city is on a totally different plane in terms of its role in the Twin Cities, its reputation, it's fun, it's exciting. And so this magazine, it's really important to me to get this thing going and be a part of what's happening here and highlight it and frame it and kind of let it grow and evolve to whatever it's going to be, because it's going to stay tuned into what's happening.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it, man. I am.
Yeah.
So
No, and I'm excited. I mean, there's definitely lots of communities that receive these types of magazines, but when we met and talked about yours, knowing that you're behind it, I know it's going to be can't miss. You know,
well,
'Cause
if it misses, I'm out.
well, I'll let you know, but it won't.
Give me
miss.
honest feedback.
It
but
won't miss because you're passionate about all the right things and you have that background. But like, you know, the one that everybody currently gets, you know, you page through it in 5 seconds, and you throw it in the garbage. Like,
feels like it was written on autopilot, and it feels like it's written with the goal of just selling ads. And I'm not a sales guy first. I'm a content creator first. And so come along the ride, you know, for that. And then, you know, also as a business, you know, you start to resonate with the community and dude, if the two of them are the same, if one's the same after the first month, I'll be mad. Like, I don't like doing anything that way. And so, that's my goal. That's my goal is to do that. And it's probably a pretty tall task, but, and then I'm attaching a podcast called Thumbs Up Blaine. Okay.
Ooh, I like it.
Which, you know, with your blessing, I will probably record here.
You definitely can do that.
And there'll be an Instagram page and that stuff. I just want to highlight, and I've got big grandiose plans, and I got to be careful not to get too far ahead of myself, because that's my biggest fail, right? When I think about things, or I've tried to do things, is I really want to create the Super Bowl before I even have.
You like to map.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it going there, but you got to execute. You got to execute.
You got to have the vision, and I have no doubt you're going to succeed at it. There's no, I mean,
I appreciate it.
You're
knowing you helps. That's for sure. I mean, I'm not, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, because that's bad radio. By the way, that's really bad radio. The first thing you learn in content creation is conflict is good.
Yeah,
conflict is good. Okay, got to have conflict in a screenplay. When I used to host a radio show, I hated my co-host, and I was ready to be done. The powers that be were like, no, we like it.
Yeah, that's good.
We actually like that you hate each other. And I was like, oh, okay, why? Conflict is good. So I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Knowing you and being connected to you is a win. And so I feel like
the
if
same
I have
way
your
about
endorsement, that's a win. So
no, and anybody that is still watching or listening, like you've heard many of his stories today. I mean, there's not many people that are as dialed in on some mindset stuff like you, have the background that you have the passion that you have. So while you'll say, you know, you like to be the dumbest person in the room, I think it's kind of difficult when you're in that room because you're pretty damn intelligent and you got it going on, buddy. So I'm proud to know you.
Thanks, man.
And, you know, you got my support 100% on everything.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
We speak the same language. Pretty much everything that you were articulating, I wholeheartedly agree with. You articulate it very well, though. There's some good things. I'm going to make my wife watch this one because it's a lot of stuff that I try to say, but you do it really, really well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's a good compliment.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And, you know, I don't want to be a grovel fest. I was going to return some compliments, but you know, like you're an honest dude. And, I will say there aren't a lot of dude realtors that, I've become friends with. Yeah. Okay. And that's the truth. But there's a sincerity about you and the way you do things. And you're really comfortable in your skin. You ain't trying to fraud or front or do any of that stuff. Like you're really comfortable being you, dude. And I admire that. And that's something I want to be around and learn from. So I'm always learning something from you.
Yeah.
And you don't say you're going to put a podcast together. You put a podcast together. Okay. Like I've been guilty of saying I'm going to do some shit and then I don't do it. And so when I look around and see someone who puts a little money where their mouth is, goes through the you know, the sort of the warts of making it happen. That's admirable. And you've done that time and time again with your different endeavors, your investments.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. So this is cool. Can I give you the gifts? Or are we running out of time?
I'm going to definitely make time to get some gifts. Yeah.
Okay. So I brought you some stuff because I think.
He walked in here with like a box of, says Svedka vodka on it. And
well, it's the only box that held this.
This is going to be an interesting podcast.
Well, okay. So to me, I have some gifts and I had some show and tell items. Okay. So, but I don't know how much time. What are we at for time? So just tell me we're at 2 hour mark, right?
Yeah, we're good. We got another 10 minutes.
Okay. So if you come without gifts, especially this time of year, like that's not reading the room.
Right.
I teach my kids to read the room.
Right.
Okay.
He is currently digging out a giant.
So this is the first one.
This is Svedka
so when you bring
vodka
gifts,
box.
here's the other thing I want you to understand. So nuance. Okay. I mean, we really got to do a part 2 because I'd like to talk about nuance, the power of nuance, and how important nuance is in context. But if you bring just a gift like this, like a playful gift, you don't get it. Okay.
Right.
You can always do a playful gift, but then you got to come with a different gift too. So this is your playful gift.
That's my playful gift.
Yep.
Oh, he knows the absolute just weight of my heart.
For sure.
I am absolutely pulling out a huge 24-pack.
It's the holidays, bro. Okay.
Dude, this thing is heavy.
That's just so you can get through the holidays. I know
this is just to
Thanksgiving.
get through it today.
But here's the thing. White Claw, it's a bit of a cliche gift for Tyler Miller because everybody knows you were the first grown man to go on record and acknowledge. But here's where I give you credit. And this is where you really grew on me. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was just something we all kept to ourselves as grown men. Okay, and you didn't, and I was like, "That's a set of balls."
Yeah, you know, it's probably the same set of balls you showed with talking about COVID. I did it with White Claw,
dude. It's completely different.
Basically, we're all courageous.
But it was keto friend. I mean, we were all like, we probably, you know what? I don't want to be that beer drinking slob.
Right.
So I'm gonna have a claw. But if anybody asks, no, I'm having like an amber,
the
an IPA.
Onslaught of memes that were sent to me for a whole calendar year.
But you owned it.
But it was so funny. But everybody like it was so funny because I don't remember why, but yeah, I just decided to own it and like almost like a joke right away. And then literally people would like approach me still to this day, obviously, and be like, "Dude, I was thinking about you last night." Like, why?
It's really unbelievable.
I had a few White Claw. I
mean, if we could get Claw to somehow sponsor this down the road, I mean, that would be full circle. But
I've tagged White Claw a few times being like, "Hey man, like, give me something. Like, this is getting
Do you have a favorite flavor? Because I've seen you drink mango, but I was just like, I'm not going to.
Actually, I've become very privy to the blackberry.
Okay.
It's subtle.
Yeah. It's subtle.
The subtle notes.
Yeah, it's definitely subtle. I feel like you own, but that's part of what you do. You just kind of own.
I'm
you know what? Part of that's having a good woman too.
Oh, for sure.
You don't have to front. The second I end up single, you're going to see the biggest fraud because I'm going to be in constant desperate state.
Yeah.
When you have a woman at home who kind of takes you for who you are, and like you don't have, you can just be, you can be a douche, you can be sweet, you can be You can screw up. You can be awesome.
Yep.
It's part of the secret. So you own that, and that's.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's also functional. Okay, you can drink these.
Oh, I'm
it's not just
going to drink these, and they're cold too. Should have brought these out
So
at the beginning.
on the beverage front, this is a gift courtesy of you heard of Bushi?
Bushi.
So Bushi's a local company.
Okay.
Chris at Bushi creates custom merch.
Okay.
Unbelievable. He's partner in the magazine.
Yeah.
Can't even remember how I met him, but he is wildly successful.
Yeah.
Okay. Global. He's a global company. He does 15, 20 events globally.
Wow.
Annually. If you know anything about running an event and what the cost is associated with that,
yeah.
He's cut his teeth, or he's mostly known for doing rugby stuff, which we don't have a lot around here. So not a lot of people have heard of him. The magazine's going to change that.
Yeah.
I walked in there for a meeting and I said, I'm going to see Tyler. Okay. He does a podcast. How long would it take? He goes, I'll make it 10 seconds. What's the name of the podcast? So you got an obvious choice podcast.
Oh my gosh. You got the logo on there.
He made that in front of me. Okay.
Dude, this is amazing.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So this is whoever's listening. That's
Bushi.
a Yeti.
Yep.
A Yeti mug.
Which, look, does anybody need another Yeti mug? Maybe not. But
dude, honestly, I don't have that many.
Okay. But here's the deal. Now you can have that on camera while you're chatting. Okay. Yeah. Promote this. But if anybody needs custom merch, or you do, this dude will turn it around. And I'm talking creative stuff.
Here, hold that. Here, I'll hold it in front of this camera, actually. Hold on. It's out of focus a little bit.
You get the point. He turned that thing around. I've got a video of him making it. I'll show you. That's kind of cool.
So this is Bushi?
Bushi, Booshie, custom merch. He's going to try and kind of expand things locally here.
I love the name. Is this his last name?
No, it's not. His last name's kind of a variation of that.
The name is
his last name's
sweet.
Like Babish.
Okay.
But it's cool, man. He's got a nondescript office in a nondescript building. He's understated, but he does unbelievable things, and he's super creative. And so, like, he for his Christmas party, I probably shouldn't say it in case I think he's surprising. Okay. I'll tell you off air, but he's doing some stuff that you wouldn't even think. If you have any stuff you want to do, that's what I'm trying to do with this magazine. Is get these partners.
Yeah. Well, in fact, he's premium in the community, partners. And I don't know him, and he does because
Tyler, you'd love him.
We need merch.
You'd love him. You'd love him. Yeah. And he doesn't just do your typical in the turnaround time. He's not giving you that custom ink, 8 weeks, crappy T-shirt stuff. It's like, go in there, pump it out. Okay. Stickers, decals, whatever you want. Okay?
Wow. Well, thank you, Bushi. Love it.
So,
just like Santa Claus over here.
Well, I was going to do some show and tell, but I feel like the show and tell might not have time since we were doing a magazine theme. I was talking about the magazine.
Yeah.
I was going to share some sports related stuff, but maybe I'll just show it to you.
Yeah. You can do a quick one.
Yeah. So this is show and tell. This is not a gift, okay? But I thought you'd think it was kind of cool. This is my love of magazines is really at the heart of what's happening here. So I thought you'd think this is kind of cool. Because I have a sports, like, I collect sports stuff, So like I have like a signed Sports Illustrated collection, 30 or 40 different guys that were on the cover signed, and ticket stubs, and so I brought some of that stuff to share depending on how this dialogue would go. So this is I'll just share this one. This is the very first Sports Illustrated. I thought you'd think that was kind of cool.
This is the very first?
Yeah, well, it's the first year. So obviously they released multiple issues, but that's an authentic first Sports Illustrated ever.
Wow.
Volume 1.
You guys can see
but as an entrepreneur too, look at the back ad. As a guy now who I'm selling ads, you don't see that anymore.
No.
So never mind the sports component of it.
Parliament cigarettes.
Yeah.
Filter mouthpiece.
If that's not a sign of the times, and it goes back to our conversation about context, right? So when you talk about look at, those cards are still intact. A lot of kids tore those out.
Wow. These are like cards?
I mean, they were one-off Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. Wow.
But you talk about context. If you go back and listen to something somebody said 15 years ago, you have no sense of the world that it was set in and what was allowed and what isn't, and we judge it by today's standards. Look through a magazine from 1954.
Yeah, this is 1954, August 16th, and it's in like pristine condition. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
But those ads, you would think these people were Satan based on the ads and the way that, and bigots and sexists, and you know what? By today's standards, they are. But it's a walk back in time, and I think it's important that we all kind of look at history a little bit. And if you like sports, then there's that added like goosebump effect.
Man, this is really cool.
So we could spend a whole pod just kind of talking
literally
about
going through this.
Yep. So
automatic shotgun.
Think about
the ads in here.
Think about that. So
Yeah.
I thought you'd think that was pretty sweet, just because I know
That is
you're a bit of a
amazing.
sports fan.
I am.
And I brought some other stuff that I won't show, but it's like I got like a ticket stub from the Tuck Rule game, Brady.
Really?
Yeah, so I had that ticket stub in there that I was going to show you. That's kind of fun.
We actually just watched that
30 for 30?
documentary. Yep,
Mhm.
with the kids.
Yep. Cash loves that too. That's really well done, actually. I mean,
Yeah, 'cause they end
Brady
up
and I
at Brady's
graduated high
house.
school the same year.
Yeah.
So Brady has a special place in my heart because
I love
it's like,
Brady.
as long as he was playing, I still felt like I could talk shit to
Yeah.
my kids.
Yep. You weren't the old guy.
Right,
still?
exactly. Kurt Gibson's home run, I got ticket stubs and stuff. So
man.
that's always fun to look at. But here's your last gift. So I know you're a Twins fan.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. Magazine theme. So I figured to show my appreciation for coming on this because I do really appreciate it. Okay. I know I'm not an obvious choice for anything.
You are the obvious choice.
Okay.
You're the unobvious.
Yeah.
Obvious
which
choice.
I'm totally comfortable with, but that it takes a claw drinking guy with kahunas to kind of break out of what the mold is, especially early in this process, right?
Yeah.
Like a year from now, it'd be easy to deviate.
Right.
But you could have found 10 other people who are obvious choices to put on in this place. So I am truly grateful. So from my own collection,
Oh man.
this is yours. Joe Mauer signed SI.
No way.
That's the legit gift to counter the joke gift.
Seriously? This is amazing, man. Thank you so much. Signed Mauer Sports Illustrated cover.
Put
Oh,
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
dude.
throw it in the office or put it on ice, and
it's
Jamie will love it or something
yeah.
down the road.
I'm gonna definitely show it to Jamie, but I'll probably put it in my home office. This is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
man.
for sure. Thanks for having me on, man. I think this is really cool, and I like to talk. I like to talk about myself, and so
You had a lot of good things to say. I mean, there wasn't much that you missed on. I thought it was really good. I thought anybody that listened to this is going to have some different perspective, things that at least make them think. You know what I mean? Which
I'm thinking.
yeah,
I mean, I hope so. I mean, whatever. If 10 people listen to it, then that's
that'll be a world record.
Here's what I always tell. So I always tell my buddy Billy and I. We talk about coaching, and we could wrap up with this if you want. Unless you have those questions you have to get to or something. But the influence we have, even if you influence 10 people, okay? Mm-hmm. If I influence 2 kids, 4 kids, 6 kids, what's the impact of that really?
Right.
Okay, the impact of that really. Let's say I coach 30 kids a year in various sports. Let's say I do it for 5 years. Okay, it's 150 kids. You could argue that's not that big of an impact. Mm-hmm. But you start to think about, if you're writing their constitution, like I say, then the decisions they make are rooted in the values, these values. Mm-hmm. You start to really like sort of amortize, or whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
You can actually start measuring economic impact.
Yeah.
Of really affecting a couple kids.
Well, it's generational.
Okay.
I still remember my youth baseball coach,
Okay.
Bob Peltier. He was the best coach I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think that a lot of what he did with us, it somehow impacted me and allows me to say the same things to my kids. And yeah, it's just those little things that you pick up on. And you're right.
And when you were still impressionable.
Totally.
It's really hard to take adults and reorient their train of thought. I mean, there's all kinds of expressions, old dogs, new tricks, things like that. But the reality is you don't write constitutions later. What are they? They're amendments.
Right.
Okay? They're amendments.
Yeah.
So you could have a profound effect on me.
Yeah.
I could go to a weekend excursion, a seminar, take a new job, watch a Tony Robbins video, and it would have a profound, it's just an amendment.
Yeah.
It's all it is.
Yeah.
It might be a really effective one. It might change the course of the way I'm living, but it's never going to be part of my constitution.
Right.
And so when you're talking about kids, you're talking about coaching, teaching, whatever it is, when they're young, parenting, that's constitutional stuff. Yeah. So if you impact 10, 12, 14, and you extrapolate it out, it's massive, massive. That's why at the end of the day, I don't think there's anybody more important, teaching more important values than the youth sports coaches in these communities. And I would stand by that, like, in a religious sense.
Yeah.
So
I love it. It's definitely a great perspective. And I didn't ever think of it that way, but you make a very good case. And I know how impactful, just any sort of authority figure can be on children. But yeah, sports is romantic, man. Sports is
it is romantic. It is, yeah.
There's so much. That's why, we've talked about, me and my wife, should we take the kids out of sports because there's just so much to do all the time and all that stuff. And I'm just like, no, We can't. Like it is such a life.
Tell me where
teacher.
else they're going to learn. Tell me where. If you give me one place, I would say you're justified in pulling. Give me one other area of life where they're going to learn, not be told, learn, because kids observe. Okay, that's why you can chirp, 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 chirp. But if you're an asshole, your kid's an asshole.
Yeah.
That's why you can say all the right things. That's why words don't matter. That's why I let my kids swear, because words don't matter. Actions do. They observe.
Yeah.
Tell me one other place in life where they learn that stuff. Where are they going to learn to set goals, overcome adversity? If you think of any, let me know, because I haven't been able to.
Yeah. There's things that will accomplish a few of them, but all encompassing, I agree with you. I don't think there is.
I can't think of any.
And with that being said, that's why you are the obvious choice.
Hey, we got there, baby.
We got there. Youth sports coach / inspiration in the community. Eric Stormoen.
We're just getting started, baby.
Just getting started. I can't wait to watch it, and I'll be there every step of the way with you, man. If you ever need an assistant, let me know.
I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate you. You're a big part of this community.
But for anybody still listening or watching, really appreciate your guys' support as always. You guys give Eric your support. He is a phenomenal person. Always up for meeting, chatting, just talking about life. That's what he loves to do.
24/7.
24/7. And, if you ever go to a sporting event in the Blaine area, there's a good chance you're going to see him. So walk up, say hi, get to know him. He's a great guy. And if you guys know anybody else that's an obvious choice in the community, please send them my way. I'd love to talk to them, get to know them. But with that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thanks again for joining. Thanks for the gifts. You're incredible, man.
Appreciate
you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.